Zheng Shui, a certified financial journalist, is gorgeous, talented, and has a bright future. But her boyfriend dumped her for a mistress whose family is loaded and whose uncle rolls around in a Rolls-Royce with a VIP plate. So Xingzhou just had the nerve to suggest they stay friends. But the girl slapped him across the face and yelled that nobody would want to be friends with a scumbag like him. She didn't get why it mattered that his mistress's family was richer than hers, or that her uncle drives a Rolls. Shui just wanted that pair of lowlifes to treat her with respect from now on and call her auntie. She knocked on the window of the Rolls-Royce with the VIP plate and asked the gentleman if he could give her a ride, since her phone died. The main character just decided to use her ex's mistress's family. But the guy behind the wheel said he doesn't give rides to girls who have boyfriends. And now the girl realized this was the mega-rich dude she turned down before. Earlier that day at the Financial Weekly, while she was at work, the main character got a call from an unknown number. Turns out it was Chen Sheng, assistant to director Xu Yan at Mingyu Bank. Her magazine had scheduled an interview with Mr. Xi Yan a month ago, but due to some personal stuff, it's gotta be pushed back a week. But interviews are always time-sensitive, so Shui asked if he could check with the director to see if they could squeeze them in. Chen Sheng said Director Shi had a pretty important dinner tonight, but they could try to make the meeting happen. No guarantees it would work, but the main character was still stoked and asked for the address. At just 27 years old, Xi Yan took over Mingyu Bank when it was on the verge of collapse. Despite the initial backlash, he made a name for himself and became the focus of the entire financial world. Xi Yan's name is such a draw that it would directly boost the popularity of any magazine that interviewed him. My coworker asked Shui if she wasn't supposed to be celebrating her boyfriend's birthday today, but our girl couldn't miss out on Xi Yan. Shui's eyes lit up like Christmas trees the second Xingzhou's name popped up on her screen. Her man asked his girl if she was done with work, said he could come scoop her up. But our main girl sadly told him she had a super important interview scheduled, so unfortunately she'd be getting home late. Plus, Shui wasn't feeling great because of her period, so she wouldn't be able to catch a movie with him tonight. Xingzhou said it was just a birthday and they could always celebrate it next year. Shui hung up and her coworker was like, "Damn, your boyfriend is too understanding." She said if she ditched her guy like that during the honeymoon phase, no matter the reason, he'd be flipping out. Shui tried to convince herself that was true, but her boyfriend didn't even ask how she was feeling and just hung up in a hurry. But our girl quickly snapped out of it and figured she was just overthinking things. As soon as evening hit, she headed over to the Warner estate looking for Xi Yan. Shui had been waiting for over 2 hours, really hoping this interview would pan out. While she wasn't looking, a man walked into the room. Turns out it was Qin Xiaoming, second in command at Mingyu and Xi Yan's brother-in-law. He was about to call out to reporter Zheng, but then her phone started ringing. Shui happily answered the call from Assistant Chen, but the guy immediately started apologizing. The reception's almost over, but Mr. Shai has other urgent matters, so the interview won't happen today. The main character got bummed out and went outside. There were a lot of familiar faces here, people she'd interviewed before. If the reception isn't over yet, that means she still has a shot. While the girl was saying hello to her friend, Qin Xiaoming spotted her again. He mentioned that this was the young woman who interviewed him, and that she's a good egg. The guy told his wife's brother that this poor thing waited up all night for him, cause that's what Chen Shen told him. That's why Qin Xiaoming asked Xi Yan to give her a ride. Director Mingyu's eyes locked onto our girl. A little later, she started getting ticked off because there wasn't even a photo of this Xi Yan online. Suddenly, a fancy black car pulled up right in front of her. Then the driver hopped out and opened the back door. Reporter Zheng turned around when she heard a guy's voice calling out from behind. The rich stranger asked if she needed a lift. The main character couldn't wrap her head around how trust fund babies could be so damn frivolous. She plastered on a smile and politely said her boyfriend was picking her up. A faint smile touched Xi Yan's stone-cold face, but Shui didn't catch it. Without a word, the man headed for his car. Xingzhou apologized to his girl again. Being his first time there, he'd taken a wrong turn and couldn't find the exit. The main character smiled and said it was cool, then asked him who he celebrated his birthday with. Xingzhou immediately got flustered and said, Shu Feng? Shui leaned in close and confessed she never would have guessed his buddy wore women's perfume. Suddenly, Xingzhou shoved her away and snapped at her to quit bothering him while he was driving. But then his tone softened. He stroked Shui's head and asked her not to be mad. The main character turned to the window, silently fuming, wondering why he'd been touching her hair so much lately. Shui got home and immediately face-planted on the bed. She decided to call Xingzhou before hitting the hay, but she couldn't find her phone anywhere, so she figured she'd left it in his car. She tracked the phone and it pinged at City General Hospital. The main character started freaking out because she couldn't figure out why Xingzhou would be there. Just to put her mind at ease, Shui decided to head over there. It was pouring rain, so she grabbed an umbrella. She spotted Xingzhou's car in the parking lot, so he really was here. The main character started getting even more worried, wondering what he was doing at the hospital so late. Suddenly, she saw Xingzhou walk out onto the street. Shui immediately felt relieved because the guy was okay. But her world shattered when a young woman followed Xingzhou out and snuggled up to him. The main character's eyes went wide in disbelief. Xingzhou better push that girl away right now, and then the main character will hear him out. But the dude didn't do that. Instead, he just pulled the hottie closer. Shui watched this and couldn't believe what she was seeing. All her memories started flashing before her eyes, and now she realized why Xingzhou had rejected her before. She wasn't imagining things because this was planned from the start. Back then, Xingzhou gave her a bracelet as a symbol of their budding relationship after trying to win her over for 3 years. The guy swore they'd spend the rest of their lives together, nothing but happiness ahead. But here he was, pinning his mistress against a Rolls-Royce with custom plates, making out like crazy. The main character took off her bracelet and left it on the handle of that jerk's car. Back home, she scrolled through all their photos together, crying her eyes out. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, making her jump. She knew exactly who it was, so she wasn't even surprised to see Xingzhou standing there. The guy hung his head, looking guilty, like he was about to have a serious talk. The next day, Shui knocked on the office door of the chief editor in the finance department, a woman named Tang Yi. The woman said she'd gotten a call from Mingyu Bank, rescheduling their meeting for next Thursday, so they were changing one of the topics. Now Zheng Shui needed to send them the updated interview guidelines ASAP. Tang Yi was taken aback by the grim look on her employee's face. The woman figured, could she really be this upset about missing out on seeing Mr. Shai? The main character replied bitterly that she'd broken up with her boyfriend last night. Shui flashed back to when Xingzhou told her about his mistress and how her uncle cruises around in a Rolls-Royce with custom plates. The guy felt helpless, saying he wants to reach that level in 20 years because right now he can't even afford an apartment. Xingzhou added that he really did love her a lot and wanted to be together forever, but staying friends would be for the best right now. The main character dumped a basket full of stuff from their happy memories all over him. "Nobody wants to stay friends with a scumbag like you," she yelled, slapping him across the face. Tang Yi reminded her employee that she'd said before this guy wasn't right for her. But with Shui's looks, she can easily get anyone she wants. The main character asked, like she was spacing out what kind of guy she should snag. "Just off the cuff," she said the guy with the Rolls-Royce. Her boss was pretty chill about it and was like, why not? Shui's got the looks, a killer job, and endless potential, so finding a guy like that should be a piece of cake. But Tang Yi told her not to let her personal life mess with her work. She told Shui to get her head in the game and kill it at the summit in the financial district today. Taking her boss's advice, the main character headed to where she needed to be. Yue Xingzhou's company was nearby, and if it wasn't for the only pastry shop in this park, there's no way Shui would have come here. Just her luck, walking outside, she bumped into her boyfriend with his side piece. The young couple locked eyes across the room. They just broke up, and he's already strolling around with his side piece. She gave Shui a curious look while Xingzhou suggested they check this place out again sometime. The mistress snuggled up to the guy, purring that she was a regular at this pastry shop. The main character realized she knew exactly who this woman was. Shui's eyes widened the second she spotted that bracelet on the mistress's wrist. She muttered, "That guy's a lost cause," and stormed out of the bakery. The girl concluded that some people just like getting sloppy seconds. The main character kicked a lamppost in frustration, but told herself not to get worked up over a couple of cheaters. Suddenly, Shui noticed a Rolls-Royce parked nearby. The car had the same plates, the exact ones she remembered when Xingzhou was all over his mistress on the hood, making out like crazy. No wonder her ex is so obsessed with this ride. But some people won't think you're generous and cool unless you make them pay their dues, because they'll just think you're a chump. Shui wanted those two lowlifes to show her some damn respect from now on and call her auntie. She's gonna make life a living hell for that whole family, mark my words. Shui's demonic look subtly shifted into a stone-cold fox. The main character tapped on the car window, but nobody answered, so she raised an eyebrow, puzzled, wondering if anyone was even inside. But the window slowly rolled down, and a dude appeared inside. The main girl froze when she saw a familiar face next to her, the rich guy she turned down yesterday. Since things had come to this, Shui decided to try her luck and asked if he could lend her his phone for a quick call, since hers was dead. but she didn't get any response. The main girl kept going, adding that if he happened to be offering rides, she wouldn't say no. The guy finally looked her way. And then he said he doesn't give rides to girls who have boyfriends. Shui was stunned when he started the car and drove off right in front of her. The guy who was hitting on her just yesterday turned out to be the ex's mistress's uncle, and now he's rejecting her out of spite. The main girl figured since her love life was a disaster, at least she could focus on her career taking off. Determined to finally get that interview with Shi Yan, the girl headed to Mingyu Bank. First thing she did was hit the reception desk and sign in as a guest. Among the other visitors, the name Shu Yuling caught her eye. Shui didn't get what that chick was doing here. Shu Yuling from her company was always at odds with the main character and constantly causing trouble. For the past 2 years, she'd been competing with her for leads, time and again. The main character didn't want to believe this was happening again. The elevator doors opened, and Shui was shocked to see Secretary Chen, the guy she told about the interview with the director. Chen Sheng asked the girl, totally confused, if she hadn't canceled everything due to urgent business. The guy told her that her colleague already did the interview this morning, since Mr. Shai luckily had some free time. Shui apologized, explaining they just hadn't coordinated things on their end. She was about to say everything was cool until she spotted someone familiar. A man the girl already knew walked into the office. It was the same uncle Shui had already had the pleasure of running into twice. The main character was really hoping what she was starting to suspect wouldn't actually happen. But no such luck, because Secretary Chen introduced the big shot as Director Shai. The nameless rich guy went from being a mistress's uncle who couldn't get with her to now being a financial titan, Shi Yan. The second he looked at her, Shui forced a friendly smile. Shi Yan didn't say a word to her, just walked right past. He acted like nothing was up. But our girl wasn't about to let things slide, not when she was still dead set on landing that interview. She was gonna earn that favorite aunt title too. She called Director Shah and reminded him about their interview scheduled for 3:30 today. Xian stopped and turned around when she added that she'd been really looking forward to it. So, if he had a free moment, she suggested they could just get the interview started right then and there. Our girl stepped closer and promised she'd only keep him for a minute. She was really hoping he'd say yes. But the guy didn't say a word, just turned and headed for the elevator, which totally bummed Shui out. But right at the doors, Xian stopped and told her to come on in with him. Now, she knew for sure there were good people out there because she was scared stiff back there. Shui just noticed they're going to the sub-levels. She was about to ask the director what this was all about, but suddenly his phone started ringing like crazy. Without even thinking, Xian just hung up on the call. Then his secretary's phone started ringing. As soon as Chen Sheng picked up, the woman on the other end started screaming at him to put her uncle on the phone like, now! The main character realized it was that woman. Xian turned his head and told him to tell her something. If she can't listen, then she shouldn't even think about showing her face around him again. Looks like things aren't as bad as she thought, which brought a tiny smile to her face. Even though Xian adores his niece, he's still a powerful and strict uncle. As they headed to the parking lot, the guy said he had a 2-hour drive so we could do the interview in the car. Then Xian hopped in and took off his glasses. He turned his head and looked at Zheng Shui. With all the grace of a leading lady, she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, really playing up the feminine charm, and settled in next to the director. Xian started rubbing the bridge of his nose at the sight of that. The leading lady was sure her face and moves were screaming total pro right now. Out of nowhere, the guy asks if she's cold. Shui, using her best angle, smiled and said she was perfectly fine. But Xian didn't react to the young woman's efforts at all and just asked to roll down the window. A blast of wind instantly rushed in, totally messing up the leading lady's hair. But Shui didn't lose her cool. She quickly grabbed a hair tie and put her hair up in a neat high ponytail. Pulling out a recorder, she asked Director Shai if she could start recording. But Xian didn't react at all, just kept up the sleepy act. The main character, with a strained smile, said she'd record the whole interview and definitely be in touch later. But the director still didn't react. Shui didn't get why he didn't just recline his seat, but she kept that to herself and suggested they get started. Xian slowly opened his eyes as soon as the main character started her intro. It was the same thing her colleague had told him that morning. Oblivious, the heroine asked if a major commercial bank should be using yuan internationalization. Now Xian was supposed to give his opinion. But when our girl glanced at him, she caught his intense, unwavering stare. Shui decided that today she had to figure out what that look meant, see if he was hiding something. Xian replied, first and foremost, banks need to maintain not just high capital levels, but also the sheer size and complexity of their operations. We need to upgrade our tech and information systems to improve service efficiency and lower risks. Banks have to update their tech and information systems to keep up with complex international financial transactions. So, to every question Shui asked, the guy gave a really thorough, open answer. The interview ended up taking 2 hours. Time just flew by for her, because keeping up with his pace really takes some serious focus. She decided to take a look at Xian. The guy was sitting with his eyes closed. You could almost think he was asleep. The main character started checking out his profile, like really studying it, until the boss slowly opened his eyes. Okay, so Xian's got a weird vibe, but damn, the dude's seriously good looking. Shui totally freaked when he suddenly turned around and asked if she was done already. She knew she had to look away, like now. The main character was speechless. All she could do was admit she'd been staring when the boss asked. Shui's pathetic life was saved by the driver, who announced that they'd arrived. Only now did the girl bother to look at where they actually were. She was totally not expecting to end up in the middle of nowhere. Shui was like, how am I supposed to get through this endless field? The only sane thing to do is hop on a horse and ride like the wind. And the director's actually just gonna leave? Seriously? The main character caught up to Xian and told him she had one last question for him. Shui said it was really just some minor gossip making the rounds online, but she still asked if he had a girlfriend. Xian immediately turned around, looking at the main character with curiosity. Shui waited for the director's answer with a smile. He turned to face her, and only now did the main character realize how huge the height difference between them was. Xian was about to answer, but another voice cut him off. A man walked up to them and asked the director if he'd arrived. The main character immediately recognized Guan Xiangchen, who was a leading figure in the business world. Shui immediately greeted him, introduced herself, and said she was a reporter for the Financial Weekly. The man recalled reading some of her articles but didn't expect the author to be such a young woman. Guan Xiangchen clapped Xian on the shoulder with a smile, saying he didn't realize he'd brought company. From his tone, she figured Mr. Guan had jumped to the conclusion that she was Xian's girl. Guan Xiangcheng offered to give the young lady a little tour of his private ranch. Each time, she reacted like she'd never seen anything so beautiful in her entire life. She was even more impressed by the horses. Guan Xiangcheng proudly mentioned that these weren't even the best ones, since the real thoroughbreds were currently in the stables. The man turned away for a second, leaving Shui alone with the director. The main character looked at Xian, confused, feeling his cold, intense gaze. She was relieved when the director didn't send her packing, but just said he was going to change. Shui promised she'd wait for him right there. Guan Xiangcheng came back with a horse and figured the miss and Xian already knew each other pretty well. Since our girl's got a thing for horses and she's already here, the boss suggested she learn to ride. The main character totally didn't expect him to actually offer. Guan Xiangcheng said there's some old clothes of his wife's in the closet, and our excited girl headed straight for the wardrobe. She was humming a little tune to herself as she walked past Director Shai. The riding clothes Shui gave her, courtesy of Mr. Guan, actually fit perfectly. Now all she had to do was buckle the belt. Hearing footsteps, our girl had a brilliant idea, so she called out to Xian. She wanted him to explain how to fasten this belt. The main character heard the guy stop dead in his tracks. And then, he headed her way, and Shui started to quickly fix herself up. Xian stopped next to her stall and said coldly that if she couldn't buckle her belt, she wasn't getting in the saddle. That was totally not the answer she was hoping for. In the end, the main character managed it herself. From the conversation, she figured out that Xian and Guan Xiangcheng weren't related, just that Xian's dad and Mr. Guan were friends. The director's actions show just how much Xiangcheng means to him. Guan Xiangcheng brought the most obedient horse. This time Xian won't turn her down, since Mr. Guan himself asked him to teach the young lady how to ride. Surprisingly, the main character skillfully mounted the horse. She was nervous, but still told Director Shai that she was counting on him. Shui totally wasn't expecting Xian to jump on her horse and sit right behind her. It made her super nervous because she had no clue if training was supposed to be like this. Xian asked what was up, and Shui said she was just a little worried about her first ride. The guy took the reins, and they started walking around the ranch at a steady pace. The main character never would have guessed Xian could be such a gentle dude, but as soon as they hit the racetrack, the guy yanked back hard on the reins, which made the horse rear up on its hind legs and let out a whinny. Then it bolted and cleared the first jump like it was nothing. It definitely wasn't stopping, so it kept tearing around the arena, jumping over everything. The main character was so scared her stomach started doing somersaults. When she couldn't take it anymore, she grabbed Director Shi's arm, which made him turn and look at her instantly. The main character turned and begged him, pleading for him to slow down a little. You could see on her face just how exhausted she was. The horse stopped dead in its tracks. Shi Yan caught her just in time, otherwise she would have just collapsed, unable to hold on. Now the man's expression was filled with guilt. Did his conscience finally kick in? Even so, she wasn't about to forgive him. Late that night, the Bentley pulled up outside Zheng Shui's apartment. The main character blinked her eyes open. Turning her head, the girl realized Shi Yan was already gone. She got out of the car and headed home, dreaming of a quick shower and hitting the sack. Tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, the main character realized her earring was missing. She was sure she'd left it in the car, but the car was already gone. Nan, a colleague, asked the main character why she hadn't replied to her message, saying things had gotten pretty wild. Shui admitted it was her fault, explaining she must have missed the message because of too many notifications. Nan revealed that Xu Yuling had also interviewed Shi Yan yesterday. What's worse, she completely ripped off all of Shui's questions. Now the main character understood why Shi Yan had reacted so strangely to all her questions yesterday. The heroine knew that Tang Yi wouldn't waste company time on situations like this, which aren't even covered by the rules. But Shui wasn't about to stay silent, so she decided to ask the editor-in-chief directly. Before that, she ducked into the restroom. Her whole body ached after yesterday, and she only had Shi Yan to blame for it. Suddenly, Xu Yuling walked into the restroom, ranting into her phone about how Tang Yi was just sticking up for Zheng Shui. Ever since she got stuck in the finance department, she's missed out on so many opportunities. Xu Yuling was sure that Tang Yi always takes Zheng's side. She was furious because Shui managed to dig up way more intel, even though they were asking the exact same questions. The main character yanked open her stall door. Xu Yuling jumped, and Shui told her there was no dark magic involved. More likely she's just more competent, and maybe Director Shi just prefers her work. The main character couldn't believe this brazen chick had the nerve to play the victim. She stole all her questions and interviews, but he who laughs last, laughs best. Shui's mood instantly improved, since it looked like they preferred her article. Even her lower back stopped bothering her, and her leg didn't ache anymore. Nan was happy that Shui managed to win in this whole mess. She asked what the editor-in-chief ultimately said about Xu Yuling's actions. Turns out, Tang Yi just swept the whole thing under the rug. As soon as the car stopped, the girls were about to get out, but the main character suddenly pushed Nan back. Only now did her colleague realize that Yue Xingzhou was right next to them. Nan asked in surprise if they had broken up. She figured it out right away. I mean, Sinju used to drive a Honda, now he's rolling in a Mercedes. And his new squeeze? Looks like she's loaded. But hey, no big deal. It's just a regular 30 grand Mercedes, totally affordable. Guess his sugar mama ain't that powerful, huh? The main girl remembered Shi Yan switches between a Rolls and a Bentley, but his niece drives a mid-range car. Looks like he's not exactly showering her with cash. Shi Yan looked up from his laptop, his eyes starting to ache. Suddenly, he noticed something shiny next to him. Turns out it was just a plain old lady's earring. Just then, the secretary told Director Shai that Zheng Shui from the Financial Weekly wanted to have a word. She says she dropped something in his car. Shi Yan answered the phone, and she immediately said hello, then asked if he'd happened to see her earring. The dude was holding it in his hand, but he straight up said he hadn't seen it. Shui asked him to check again, 'cause it was super important to her. Turns out her grandma gave it to her mom, and her mom gave it to Shui, so it's like a family heirloom. These earrings were supposed to be part of what she wears on her wedding day. Looking at them always reminded her of her grandma, who she hasn't seen in ages. Shi Yan felt a lump in his throat. A slight smile crept onto his lips as he told the young journalist that he actually did find her missing item, except her heirloom was just cheap plastic. Shui didn't want to bother Chen Sheng too much about the earring, so she asked for the address and decided to pick it up herself. But when she got to the place, she was like, no way people can actually live here. All right, Operation Auntie is officially a go. The main character knocked on the door and greeted whoever was inside with a friendly smile. But Shui wasn't expecting the door to be automatic, and for there to be no one inside. The vibe in the house was kinda gloomy. Judging by the surroundings, she figured she was in the living room. Nearby, she spotted a huge terrace, and Shi Yan was out there, just chilling and reading a book. The dude looked totally at peace, like nothing could ever harsh his mellow. Spotting the reporter, Shi Yan took off his glasses and pointed to where the earring was lying. The main character smiled, because the director really did help keep her earring safe and sound. She hurried to grab it right away. Finally, the long-awaited reunion happened. Next to Shui's desk, she spotted a disc rack that immediately caught her eye. It had a music album by Sun Leelan, who was like a total idol for the main character. Even though Sun Leelan was a super popular singer, Shiyan didn't exactly strike her as the type to be into that kind of music. But the girl still decided to ask the guy if he liked Sun Leelan. The main character told him that she was a huge fan too. Plus, she had all those albums at home. Suddenly, on the couch, the young journalist noticed a woman's purse and scarf. These things definitely belong to a young woman, which means she's in this house right now. Shoei immediately bowed and said she had to get going since she got her earring back and it's gonna get dark soon. But out of nowhere, Shiyan asked if she was already leaving. The main character awkwardly told Director Shai that she still had work waiting and didn't want to bother him any longer. And then she hurried to leave the house. But she stopped because she realized she'd just made up the whole thing about Shiyan having a girlfriend. Should she ditch all her plans based on one unreliable guess? Before completely giving up, the main character decided to get a straight answer. So she walked up to him and awkwardly said that she'd run into a little situation on the way over. Shiyan's face went totally blank as Shui asked if his girlfriend could lend her something. The main character asked, all confused, if those things in the living room didn't belong to his girlfriend. Seeing the purse and scarf on the couch, Shiyan smirked, all pleased with himself. He said no, they didn't, and Shui immediately grinned, saying that was great news. A sly smile crept onto Director Shi's face. He stepped closer to the main character and asked why that was such a good thing. Shui totally froze, not knowing how to answer that. She explained that it would help avoid any future complications, you know? But the guy closed in even more and asked what exactly she meant by that. The main character jumped when he lightly stepped on her slippers. She immediately backed away and told him not to get the wrong idea because there was no way she could reveal her true intentions. Shui felt like she was trapped with no way out. Shiyan decided to stop messing with the reporter and told her his niece definitely wouldn't see this as a simple misunderstanding. The main character looked up and met the man's piercing gaze. Realizing exactly who was there, Shui exclaimed that his niece really shouldn't get the wrong idea about this. So she said goodbye to Director Shi and hurried out of there. A girl walked into the room and asked, surprised, how it could have gotten dark outside so fast. Shiyan's real niece, whose name was Qin Shiyu, thought she'd just heard a woman's voice. The girl asked her uncle pitifully if she really had to take this job. Our family has so much money, we couldn't spend it all in 3 lifetimes. Besides, it's already December, so Qin Shiyu suggested they talk about it next year. But Shiyan shut her down, saying his family doesn't carry dead weight, crushing Qin Shiyu's hopes. The next day, the main character found out her boss wanted her to keep an eye on the new intern. Judging by the resume, it was clear this was a spoiled daddy's girl who got the job through connections. After a bit, a girl walked up to Shui. The main character turned around and greeted the new intern. Chinshu looked like she was suffering, but she introduced herself anyway and told Shui she was really excited to work with her. This time, the main character was determined to give it her all and finalize the Shiyan interview. But the intern needed an assignment, so Shui handed her the recording of the latest interview and asked her to write a draft. Shu thought it would be easy, until she saw that the interview was with Shiyan. The language was way too technical, and the girl could barely understand a thing. So she decided to reach out to Miss Shui for help. But the journalist didn't react at all. Shu tried again with Zheng Shui, but the girl still didn't respond, just reached for her coffee. Right now, Shui was clearly blowing off her intern. In her entire life, Shu had never met anyone who so blatantly ignored her. Time flew by, and now the main character could confidently wrap up her work. She took off her headphones, deciding to check on the newbie, but she was already gone. Guess that girl's really punctual, or she just didn't like the job much. Back home, Shu grumbled about how boring work was and how her supervisor made her transcribe audio. Song Leyland asked her daughter who her supervisor was. The girl mentioned Zheng Shui, which caught her dad's ear. The man told his daughter he'd met her advisor a few times, and she seemed like a real stand-up person. Shu's ready to learn, but it looks like her advisor isn't exactly thrilled to teach her. Noticing her uncle's indifference, the girl started ranting and raving about all the unfair stuff that happened today. But Shiyan just wiped his hands and said he was already done eating. It was her uncle who made Shiyu intern at the Financial Weekly, so he's got to take some responsibility. The next morning, Shui walked into the office and greeted everyone right away. She was in a good mood because the top boss liked her article. All she had to do was wait for Shiyan's reply. Turns out, the reply email was already in her inbox. But the answer from Director Shai was a big fat no. No matter how hard the main character tried to fix things, she kept hitting the same brick wall. This was Shui's first time interviewing Shiyan, but she had no idea he was so demanding. Xiu was stoked, because it looked like her uncle had pulled some strings for her after all. Xu Yuling snidely asked her rival if she wasn't the one who claimed Xiyan just liked her better. The deadline's almost here, and there's just no time to start editing from scratch. So the main character went to the editor-in-chief and asked for Xiyan's number so she could ask him herself. The driver told Director Shi they had arrived. Right in front of his house, the guy spotted a familiar female figure. Xiyan immediately put on his glasses to confirm his suspicion. Just like he thought, it was the journalist Shui who had been patiently waiting for him for a while now. The girl's face lit up when she spotted a familiar car. The second director Shi stepped out. Our girl called out to him. Shui walked up to him and said she had a feeling he wanted to see her, so she came. The main character instantly regretted phrasing it that way, because Xiyan just coldly asked her what made her think he wanted to see her. Shui stammered, asking why he'd rejected her article 3 times and ignored her calls then. The guy just said she wasn't cutting it. Shui got closer, begging him to tell her what to change, saying she'd fix it right away. Director Shi didn't say a word, just headed towards his place. The main character decided to go for broke and yelled, so he did want to see her after all. Xiyan stopped, a satisfied smirk creeping across his face. Out of nowhere, he tells her she's good to come on in. Basically, Xiyan's inviting the main girl into his place. He probably already clocked she's in a bind, but he's still asking her in. Or maybe the main girl's got some serious mojo working on him after all. Hard work always pays off because Shui's definitely got the goods. Director Shi tapped his chair a couple times, then told her to sit and edit right there for him. The girl struck a pose like a straight-A student ready to obey and rattled off that she'd get it done. He really only let her in to make her edit this interview right then and there. The guy offered her some water, but Shui refused because she wanted to try the drink that Director Shi was pouring himself. Xiyan explained that it was alcohol, but the main character already knew that. She immediately felt like a winner the moment the guy handed her the glass. Xiyan's phone rang, and as soon as he picked up, Xiu asked if she could come over. But the man said no way. He immediately looked up and started checking out Shui working in his window's reflection. The girl turned around and their eyes met. Xiyan looked down and told his niece he was tied up at the moment. As soon as the man hung up, the main character walked up to him. In a sweet voice, she asked Director Shi to take a look at the latest version of the article she'd just finished. Xiyan replied that it still felt like there was too much fluff. The main writer promised to fix everything immediately. Right now, Shui was chilling at his place, kind of like a kept woman, while the guy just relaxed. After several rejected drafts, Xiyan finally said it wasn't bad. A tipsy-looking smile spread across the girl's face. Just to be sure, she asked if there was really nothing else that needed tweaking, because she could keep editing since striving for perfection was her whole deal. Seeing the journalist's expression, Xiyan gave a slight smile. He reminded her that she'd been alone with him at his place for hours, and her boyfriend might not be cool with that. The main character gave a cold reply, saying she didn't have a boyfriend. That's because they broke up the very night she first met Director Shi. Shui gently grabbed the guy's shirt when he quietly scoffed. She dared to ask Director Shi if that meant she could flirt with him. Xiu walked toward her uncle, quietly humming a simple tune. Suddenly, Shui came out of the house. The main character told the girl that it would probably rain tomorrow, so she should bring an umbrella to work. Xiu popped in to see her uncle and happily chirped that she had a gift for him. Xiyan didn't react at all. The man was holding a glass with a clear lipstick stain on it. Xiu knew right away there was definitely a guest in the house. Xiyan reminded his niece he'd already told her not to come. He ordered her sternly to put the gift down and then get her butt moving and go straight home. Right then, Xiu knew he wasn't kidding around. Getting home, the main character immediately collapsed on the bed. Now Xiu was positive she was losing her mind. After her forward question, the guy asked if she'd back off if he happened to turn her down. Of course, the main character had no intention of backing down. She was only asking out of courtesy so she wouldn't offend Director Shi. The guy opened the automatic door and told Xiu it was time for her to leave. After grabbing all her stuff, the main character told Xiyan she'd add him on WeChat, saying she's great company. He didn't say anything, so she figured that was a yes. Her phone started buzzing, and she immediately thought it was Xiyan's friend request. But it was just a message from her classmate Bi Roshan. Her friend was asking if she'd broken up with her boyfriend because she saw Xingzhou posting travel pics with some girl. Thunder boomed outside. The main character perked right up because she didn't give a damn about that jerk anymore. She had her own stuff going on. After texting Xiyan a few times, the girl went to sleep. In the dead of night, she got a notification that Xiyan had declined her friend request. The main character shot straight up in bed and then realized it was just a bad dream. Shui felt a wave of relief wash over her right away. But the guy didn't send a single text all night, so she started freaking out that he really did reject her request. Shuyu arrived at work and overheard the staff whispering that Zheng Shuyi's article kept getting rejected by Mingyu Bank. An uncle might take his anger out on his niece, but he probably wouldn't treat his hot girlfriend like that. The main character called Shiyu over to her. Shuyi looked gloomy, but she still told the girl that they had to go to a meeting together. It was about a press conference at Mingyu Bank. Shuyu immediately felt a primal fear of her uncle, but Zheng Shuyi, on the other hand, felt confident. Shiyu suggested sitting in the back, but the main character replied that the sound was bad back there and dragged the intern to the front row. Alright, the press conference is officially underway. All the conference reps are taking the stage, including Xian. The guy takes his seat and bam! A million cameras start flashing. Our girl was totally mesmerized, just staring at Director Shai for a sec. Their eyes met and they both gave each other a little nod. But the eye contact was super brief, cause Director Shi immediately looked away. Girl grabs her phone right away and starts typing like crazy. In her texts, Shui's just gushing about Director Shai, saying he looks totally amazing and irresistible today. Feeling his phone buzz, Xian pulls it out. After reading all the texts from our girl, the guy's brow furrows like a storm cloud. Shui fired off another text, hoping to snap Xian out of his permanent frown. But the dude's glare just got even icier. Now the main girl's acting like she's back in school, all obedient. While Shui's furiously typing away on her laptop, Shu's feeling super awkward. She told Shui she needed some fresh air, cause Director Shai's been staring daggers at her and it's starting to creep her out. The main girl glanced at Xian and their eyes locked again. She told her intern not to sweat it, cause Director Shai wasn't even looking at her. But Shui let Shu go anyway. During the break, some guy came up to the main girl. His name was Hei Bowman, and he confessed to the journalist that he'd wanted to meet her in person for a long time. He suggested they connect on WeChat so they could swap industry news when the opportunity arose. Never hurts to have connections, so Shui agreed. She barely got her phone out when she felt a pair of eyes burning into her. It was Director Shai staring at her again. Except this time, his gaze was totally different than before. Xian got up from his seat and headed straight for our girl. The young woman jumped when Director Shi suddenly called out her name. It was super weird, but Xian asked her to follow him. Director Shi took off, leaving Shui and Hei Bowman still stunned by what just went down. And that's when it hit our main character. She was totally convinced Xian was losing his mind with jealousy. So, all smiles, she followed him, wanting to know what was so urgent. The guy immediately told her to have a seat. Shui did as she was told, figuring Director Shai was about to spill how jealous he was about that other dude. But out of nowhere, Xian asks Shui where that reporter chick who came with her is. Seeing the confusion on her face, he clarified he meant the young female reporter. Shui decided to help him get in touch with her. Our girl dialed up Shu and found out she was chilling at a coffee shop just outside. The intern explained she hadn't gone anywhere, just needed a breather. Shui hung up and told Director Shi that the girl was already gone. But Xian wasn't buying it, so she added that the girl had a thing about authority figures. But Shui doesn't have that problem. Whenever she sees him, her heart just starts doing backflips. But Xian wasn't falling for it, and she knew this trick wasn't going to work on him again. Secretary Chen poked his head in, letting him know the conference was about to start up again. Xian headed for the door, but stopped and turned around. He saw how bummed she looked and just sighed like he was worn out. Finally, the conference was over, and she could head home and chill. The whole way home, she was thinking about how she'd gotten stuck with another Fall Guy role. Something caught the main character's eye, and she stopped dead in her tracks. It was Director Shai having a cozy chat with Shu, and he wasn't exactly pushing her away. Turns out all along, Xian wasn't really interested in Shui at all. Shu said her goodbyes to the guy, and he immediately looked up. Their eyes met again, but Shui wasn't about to let herself get played this time. She was really hoping the guy didn't notice anything. Now the main character knew for sure. She'd been seeing what she wanted to see the whole time. After a few more steps, the girl figured he'd probably left already. So she decided to turn around and make sure for herself. But Xian was standing by his car, adjusting his cuffs, clearly waiting for someone. Their eyes met again, and the guy tilted his head slightly. The main character was like, "Is this dude seriously trying to come on to me right now?" Her cheeks started burning up, and Shui immediately turned away and started walking even faster than before. She was sure this wasn't how things were supposed to go down in her head. Xian wasn't accepting her feelings, but he wasn't rejecting them either, and he was acting all weird with other women at the same time. Looks like he's just getting a kick out of messing with Shui. Lost in thought, the main character didn't notice she'd walked into a dead end. Director Shi is probably waiting for her to turn around again, but she wasn't about to give him the satisfaction. But then he walked up to her himself. The main character jumped when Director Shi asked her from behind in a low voice what she was doing there. All Shui could think to say was that she was praying. Shi Yan offered to go with her, but all she did was wish him well, hinting that he should just leave already. Director Shi let out a heavy sigh, but all she wanted was for him to finally leave her alone. Then out of nowhere, Shi Yan grabbed her sleeve and pulled her along. She didn't expect him to insist again, especially since he was planning on walking her home. In the end, Shui decided to grit her teeth and bear it for the greater good, focusing all her energy on revenge. Shi Yan was on the phone when he noticed Shui's pouty face. She just ignored him, turning to look out the window. Director Shi switched the phone to his other hand. He held his phone to his ear, giving the young reporter a good look. Her childish antics were clearly getting to him in a good way. Once they arrived at their destination, Shi Yan glanced at the reporter again. The girl was out cold, totally oblivious to everything. Shiken made sure to put his phone on silent so nothing would wake Shui up, but then she started slowly leaning in his direction. To stop her from falling, Shi Yan gently grabbed her. He eased her back into her seat but lingered, his hand still on her cheek, carefully studying her features. His lips parted slightly, and some pretty wild thoughts started racing through his head. All of a sudden, she snuggled closer to Director Shi's hand, and her lips brushed against his finger. Shi Yan pulled his hand away but didn't rush to leave. Soon, the main character woke up. Her eyes flew open the second she realized she'd fallen asleep in Director Shi's car again. But unlike last time, Shi Yan was still here. She called out to him and he reacted so he wasn't asleep. Shui asked anxiously if she'd made him wait long, but he said no. Then, she decided to say something to break the awkward tension that had built up between them. But Shi Yan asked if she was planning on spending the night, since she wasn't getting out of the car. Shui asked awkwardly if that was even an option. But the man coldly informed her that he had a very busy schedule. This guy's a total buzzkill, so the main character hopped right out of the car. She thanked the director for the ride and said her goodbyes. The door slammed shut and Shi Yan was alone again. The driver said it was rush hour and the trip would take longer than expected, so there was a good chance they'd be late. The director nodded, staring intently at his hand, the one that had just touched Shui's face. Now, thinking about it, the main character realized something important. Shi Yan was obviously going the wrong way and super busy, but he still gave her a ride home and waited for her to wake up. You could almost say he was trying to cheer her up. But Shui still didn't get it. First, Shi Yan was all over Xiu, and now he's trying to comfort her too? What's his deal? Turns out Director Shi is a real piece of work. Okay, so the main girl had her own agenda, but at least she wasn't playing the field like he was. But Shui shouldn't beat himself up about it, because this works too. Her uncle and his niece are cut from the same cloth, so now Shui can move forward with his plans without anything holding him back. But for some reason, he felt this weird ache inside. The next day at the meeting, Tang Yi announced that Zheng Shui's interview got rave reviews. The article made a real splash in the financial world. The main character smiled as everyone started clapping for her. Xu noticed that after all the praise at the meeting, Zheng Shui seemed even more down than before. Maybe it was because of all the endless edits to the article. Xu felt guilty, never thinking her uncle would actually take her side just because she complained. She noticed Xu Yuling sidle up to Shui, suggesting they celebrate the awesome article together tonight. But the main character totally blew her off. So, the co-worker wondered if she was so bummed out because of a recent situation with her boyfriend. But Shui didn't react to that either. Xu Yuling jumped up, demanding Shui show a little respect when she's talking to her. The main character sighed heavily and pulled an earbud out of her ear. She asked her co-worker if she'd said something. The reporter explained she had noise-canceling headphones on, volume cranked so she didn't hear a thing. Xu finally understood what was going on. Xu almost missed everything that time because of those same headphones. Now that I think about it, that actually makes sense. 'Cause that woman doesn't strike me as the type to just blow people off. Xiyu had to admit she messed up and hurt Xu with her assumptions. She was clueless about how to fix things now, considering how bad they already were. Cleaning up actually helped the main character feel a lot better. The only problem was, she had no idea who to take to the Sung Leyland concert tomorrow night. Suddenly, a message popped up and some account called SY added her as a friend. She definitely hadn't given out her WeChat recently, and if it was someone she knew, Xu would have told her. Then it hit her. That dumb nickname probably belonged to Xian. No posts at all? It's gotta be him. The main character was stoked. She finally got that friend request. She asked the director if he was heading to bed already, but he said it was still early. Shiyan friended Shui just in time, cause she remembered he was a Song Leland fan too. She dropped 2 tickets in the chat and asked who wanted to hit up the concert. Shui decided to give the director another shot, so she asked if he was free tomorrow night. He said he was. Then the main character suggested they go together tomorrow, and he was down. Shui was over the moon and already stressing about what to wear tomorrow. The time came for the girl to meet up with the director. She even bought those headbands, you know, the ones that make you look extra cute according to every K-drama ever. Shui was dead set on tricking Shiyan into wearing one. A seriously expensive car with a baller license plate pulled up in front of her? Definitely director shy. But then someone with heels started getting out, and Shui's imagination went totally sideways picturing Shiyan. Turns out it wasn't a dude at all, it was Chin Shiyu. The main character just smiled and said, "Well, ain't that a coincidence?" The girl gave Shui a confused look and, with a slightly hurt tone, reminded her that she was the one who invited her. The main character just stood there for a few seconds, trying to process what she'd just heard. And then it finally clicked. Shiyan and Shiyu have the same initials, which means she didn't add Director Shi as a friend. The main character's plan went down in flames. The pop star's concert was in full swing. Shui felt like a total loser, so she pulled out her phone to check if Shiyan had replied. This has got to be just a simple misunderstanding, right? The main character was ready to give Shiyan a piece of her mind since he still wasn't answering her texts or calls. Suddenly, the singer started belting out a song about how she once thought it was all over too, because there was a void in her heart. You can't fill a heart with silent, bitter tears because it still craves what it can never have. The main character's heart felt totally empty too, so she started waving her glow sticks even harder. Shu looked at her supervisor, confused, and asked if she was in a bad mood. Shui stopped and looked at Shiyu with teary eyes. She explained that she'd recently broken up with her boyfriend because he dumped her for a mistress with rich parents and an uncle. This really ticked Shiyu off, so she replied that people like that deserve a serious reality check. The main character also said that she couldn't just let it go, and recently her uncle had started showing interest in her. So now she was going to, turn the tables on him and become the aunt. Seriously, being a regular person, you can't just lose it like that, because now Shui was barely holding it together. After the concert, Chin Shiyu said she had urgent business and left. The main character decided to call a cab, but she was number 88 in line. Not seeing the curb, she tripped. Looks like those shoes are officially retired. The main character started looking around, hoping to spot at least one taxi nearby. But then, a familiar expensive car caught her eye. She was totally surprised to see Shiyan behind the wheel. The guy was driving right towards her. The car stopped right in front of her, but Director Shy didn't do anything, didn't even say a word. In her head, a voice screamed that she was about to become an ant. So, in a kinda pouty voice, Shui told Shiyan she'd just twisted her ankle. And it was all his fault. The director's gotta answer for this, plain and simple. She tried to sound tough, but her voice just kind of faded out at the end, which brought a smile to Shiyan's face. Suddenly, the car peeled out and took off. Truth is, she only twisted her ankle a little, but she was moving like she was totally crippled. Some random dude walked up and asked if she needed a hand, but Shui told him her boyfriend was on his way, so the guy immediately left her alone. She was pissed at Shiyan. Even though he's blind as a bat, he's still a total jerk. Shui knew she was cute and sweet. Guess the director goes out of his way to avoid looking at pretty girls, 'cause he'd rather gouge his eyes out. Right then and there, Shiyan stopped right next to the girl. He definitely heard everything she was saying just now. The main girl gave an awkward smile and said she'd explain everything once they were in the car. The expensive foreign car sped through the night city. 10 minutes had already passed, and Shui still hadn't come up with an excuse. The main girl asked him not to rush her, since there were still 90 minutes left before the answers were due. She whined pitifully, saying her ankle was killing her. Because of that, Director Shui sped up. Soon, they arrived at Jiangcheng City Family Hospital. The main girl immediately realized that this rehabilitation hospital belonged to Shiyan's family. The guy opened the door for Shui and told her to get out. But she gave Shiyan the puppy dog eyes, saying her leg was killing her, she couldn't even move. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have had to walk so far on a bum ankle. Shiyan just shrugged and said he didn't see anything since his eyes were indisposed. The main character threw her arms out and gave him a pleading look, asking him to carry her. Shiyan leaned down and, totally serious, told Shui to cut the childish act. She started to protest, but the director just effortlessly scooped her up in one arm. What she meant was for him to give her a piggyback ride, not hold her like this. Shi Yan's face was way too close right now. Shui could smell his woodsy cologne and feel his breath. Hey, when an opportunity like this comes along, you gotta jump on it. She asked Shi Yan if his exes ever told him he had a killer angle from over there. The main girl was hoping that hit finished the job. But out of nowhere, Shi Yan just lets go of her and she starts to fall. But the dude catches her right away and coolly asks if her exes ever told her she was a little on the heavy side. That had never happened before, so it totally pissed her off and she puffed out her cheeks again. Shui was squealing with every touch from the doctor, even though he was being super gentle. The main girl explained that she's just got a really low pain threshold. Shui was trying to play the sympathy card with Shi Yan, but the dude just bounced out of the room when his phone rang. Now the girl's telling the doctor he can examine her however he wants because she's ready to tough out any pain. The woman smiled and gave the girl some tips to help the pain go away faster. She also added that even though the girl's boyfriend was super handsome, he seemed totally clueless. The main character told her not to say that because he's really not that insensitive. The doctor tried to explain to the girl that she was just making excuses for him right now. Shi Yan froze as soon as Shui exclaimed that he was a real piece of work from the start. Time passed, and the main character started wondering where Director Shi had gone and why he wasn't back yet. The doctor said that he went to take care of the bill. Soon a nurse wheeled up a wheelchair. Shi Yan was waiting for the girl outside by his car. Before long, they wheeled the main character over to him. The nurse left, but Director Shi wasn't exactly jumping into action. The main girl reached out her arms again, reminding him she still couldn't walk on her own. Clearly, Shi Yan wasn't going to be able to say no to that. Shui was sure, after getting through this little hurdle, their relationship would take another step forward. But then something scurried past Director Shi's feet, and the main girl, caught off guard, let out a scream. Shi Yan froze, confused, and Shui bolted. She threw herself into his arms, yelling about a huge rat. The guy caught her, then glanced at the two cats sitting by the wheelchair, which was only a few feet away. Shui knew she'd been caught red-handed and burning with embarrassment said she'd get in the car first and explain everything later. But on the drive, Shi Yan got a call from a friend asking if he knew someone named Bailing. Turns out this dude's friend is shooting a movie and wants her for the lead, but they're butting heads over the pay. Of course, Shui overheard everything and knew Bailin was a fresh-faced actress. Shi Yan shot back that this girl's acting skills were, at best, totally average. But he knows someone with way more talent. The main character got home, thinking this day was the absolute craziest she'd ever lived. Today, she felt totally humiliated and like she'd hit rock bottom. Even so, quitting isn't in her vocabulary, so she wasn't about to throw in the towel. Shui almost forgot she still needed to settle her medical bill, so she decided to text Shi Yan about it. The main character was stunned when the guy actually replied and told her to check WeChat. A user named Shi Yan added her as a friend. But the girl still wanted to double-check, just to be sure it was him. This time it was definitely Director Shi, so she asked how much the medical bill came to. Shi Yan refused the money, so the main character decided to check herself, cause she didn't want to owe him. Turns out an outpatient visit at that place cost a fortune. Director Shu said to consider the money payment for her amazing performance today. The main character couldn't believe her Oscar-worthy acting was worth so little. A plan started forming in Shui's head as soon as Shi Yan asked how much she wanted then. Right then, Song Leilin asked her brother if he finally decided to show up when everyone was about to leave. Shi Yan explained that he had to take care of a couple of things on the way. Qin Xiaoming reminded him that there's a dinner at Uncle Cheng's tomorrow, so he asked him to bring Shiyu. But the girl made it crystal clear she wasn't going anywhere near that place. Shi Yan told his sister-in-law's husband that she didn't belong there. The director's face lit up the second Shui on the other end suggested dinner tomorrow. Shi Yan agreed and said he'd pick her up at 5. Now, the main character's gotta figure out what to wear on their first date. Looking for help, Shui texted Shi Yan, asking which dress would look best on her. When the guy just casually said red, the main character wondered where she'd even find something like that. Shui remembered she wore red riding gear the day they went horseback riding. The main character immediately went to the mall and found herself a beautiful red dress. Suddenly, she heard familiar voices close by. It was those two losers. Suddenly, the main character's phone started buzzing. Shu texted her, and Shui immediately spilled the tea. She'd just run into that snake with her friend. Shu was furious and immediately asked where Shui was, promising to be there ASAP. The main character figured she'd just wait them out, but 15 minutes went by and nothing changed. Once Qinleji picked out the exact same dress as Shui, the main character decided she'd had enough. She stepped out of the dressing room. Everyone immediately went silent, staring at the young woman. The saleswoman immediately started gushing over Shui, saying the dress was made for her. The main character thought so too, so she decided to snap a pic and send it to someone. Right now, Shi Yan was in a meeting. Something buzzing caught his attention. It was his phone. Turns out, Shui sent him a photo in a new red dress and wanted a 2-word reply. The guy took off his glasses and started rubbing the bridge of his nose. The board members asked if everything was all right, and Shi Yan nodded, telling them to keep going. In the end, the jerk just said the outfit looked acceptable instead of, like, amazing. Other girls asked the consultant for the same dress, but she said the last 2 were already being tried on. Chinleji snapped, saying the dress was totally basic. But then she saw her boyfriend, frozen, staring at Shui. The main girl knew that if she left, it would look like she was intimidated by those cheaters. She and her ex's mistress both reached for the same dress on the rack. Chinleji figured with a smirk they had the same taste, and the main event was about to begin. Each of the girls started trying on similar outfits. Shui was clearly winning in all of them. The sales associate asked, practically drooling, if she should wrap up all those outfits. Chinleji walked over to her man and said with a sly grin that she loved all the clothes and asked him to buy them. Just then, Shu showed up at the store and asked her friend if she'd picked anything out yet. She told the saleswoman to pack up absolutely every single outfit, except for the ones that couple was trying on. Everything else, she wanted one of each style in her friend's size. The main character tried to stop Shu from spending so much, but she said not to worry about it since she's just using her uncle's credit card and he's loaded. Shu thanked her friend for helping her pick out the ugliest stuff, saving her a ton of hassle. That really ticked Chinleji off. Leaving the store, the main character thanked Shu for her help. Shu suggested they hang out, but the main character said she already had dinner plans with someone, which was totally part of the seduction plan that Shu was all about. But the main character decided she'd definitely return all the clothes to the store in a couple of days, because she didn't want anything to do with Shu's uncle's money. The main character thanked the guy for helping her carry all the stuff, and he immediately got flustered. Shui looked absolutely stunning in that outfit, so much so that Xian couldn't take his eyes off her. He hopped right out of his car. Calling out to Shui, the CEO asked her to get in. The main character was really hoping Xian wouldn't think she was some crazy shopaholic blowing tons of cash. He rushed her into the car so fast, she didn't even have time to go home and drop off all the bags. Soon, they arrived at a really gorgeous place. The main character doubted that it looked anything like a restaurant. CEO Shi came up behind her and asked the reporter why she was so short compared to him. Shui immediately snapped back, saying there are plenty of people in the world who are her height, and it's no big deal. Instead of answering, the guy just headed inside and motioned for the girl to follow. Shui huffed, but still asked if they hadn't agreed to have dinner together. Xian stopped and asked, genuinely confused, if this wasn't considered a dinner invitation, but he knew damn well that wasn't what Shui meant. Still, he decided to play dumb and ask what she meant. Whatever. The main girl wasn't in the mood for games, so she decided to humor this blockhead. A slight smile played on Director Shi's lips. Arm in arm, they walked into the building. The main girl was immediately met with stares, like they'd never seen a pretty face before. Everyone started whispering, wondering if this was that actress Shi Yan was talking about on the phone earlier. Thing is, she's a total unknown, even though she looks incredible. Shui decided to introduce herself first and revealed she's actually a reporter from a financial weekly. Director Shi pulled out his phone and started looking something up. Suddenly, the main character's phone got a notification. Yue Xingzhou asked the girl what she was up to these days. This really ticked Shui off, and she even started thinking things were getting seriously out of hand. She instantly wanted to fire back something like, how dare he even text her after everything that went down? But she figured it'd be better to text back that she was, busy. The main character froze when she realized Director Shi had seen everything too, because his face immediately went dark. Shui awkwardly told the guy she hadn't finished typing yet. The heroine tried to fix things but totally crashed and burned. One of the women asked Shui if he was feeling all right or what. Director Shi replied mysteriously, saying maybe his date just didn't dig the food here. A waitress came over to the table with the desserts. She put a serving down in front of the main character and told her to enjoy. Shui immediately stabbed her fork into the dessert. Someone wondered if the chef was feeling generous and decided to treat everyone to pastries. Xian said that he was the one who ordered them, since there's someone here who really loves chowing down on pastries. Later that night, a fancy foreign car pulled up to the main character's place. The girl hopped out of the car right away, thanking Director Shi for everything, but Xian called after her. Shui was glad she hadn't worn heels, so she could bolt like a rocket right now. The guy called after her again, but our girl just decided to pick up the pace, trying to dodge any awkward chats. But Shi Yan caught up to her real quick. He asked, sounding worried, why she was running away. The girl's face went bright red, and she said she totally heard him calling her. The guy pulled her hand towards him, asking why the rush then. Was she in such a hurry to avoid a certain situation? The girl tried to yank her hand away, but Director Shai had a tight grip. But he suddenly let go and headed back to the car, telling her to grab her bags from the car, quick. So Shui gets it now, he only dragged her back for this. The main character started to suspect he just wants to mess with her right now. A few days later, the main character flew out on a business trip, where she finally got to meet Bi Roshan. The college buddies were super stoked to see each other. Roshan suggested the main character cut loose and have some fun now that she's visiting. Xiaoyi told her friend about her plan to, win over Director Shai. Roshan was surprised, but the heroine replied that Shi Yan is still a man, which meant she could totally win him over. The night views of the waterfront were incredible, so the girls decided to snap a photo to remember it. Roshan decided she'd post the photo as a story, to show off the scenery to everyone. The main character realized it had been a while since she'd, paid attention to Director Shai. Shui almost texted him, but she quickly scrapped that idea. Right then, Shi Yan was chilling on his yacht. He was wrestling with a bunch of thoughts, so he decided to check WeChat. He tapped on Zheng Shui's contact and noticed she'd posted some moments. Seeing the photo, a smile instantly spread across Director Shi's face, because he realized she wasn't in town. Guan Xiangcheng walked up to him and asked, surprised, "Isn't that the journalist?" Shi Yan's father's friend got curious, wondering where she'd been hiding out lately. Director Shi just let out a heavy sigh. After a hectic day, the main girl crashed into bed, so she didn't even notice when she got a message from Shi Yan asking when she was coming home. Shui only found out this morning that Uncle Guan was missing her. She sent Shi Yan a voice message, freaking out and asking why Guan Xiangcheng wanted to meet with her. Shui saw that the director had read the message, but he wasn't replying. She started demanding an answer, and then Shi Yan decided to reveal that Mr. Guan had agreed to the interview. The main character immediately started thanking him. It was only then that Shu Yi wondered when she had even sent Mr. Guan Xiangcheng a request for an interview in the first place. The girl started bombarding Shi Yan with questions, but he didn't understand what she was getting at. The main character decided to drop trying to figure it out, figuring she shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. In the end, she agreed to meet with Guan Xiangcheng next week. Initially, the main character said she'd head back home from Wucheng today and start preparing for the interview. But the guy told her not to sweat it, said she should just chill in this sweet spot for a few more days, since they weren't exactly in a rush. Xiaoyi didn't know Uncle Guan was such a cool host, so she was happy to take him up on it. She wanted to change her ticket, but a massive blizzard grounded all flights, so it all worked out perfectly. She figured she'd just kick back and enjoy the next few days with her friend. For the first time in ages, she had zero work on her plate. No Yue Xingzhou, no Qin Leji, and definitely no Shu Yan to deal with. Little did she know, Director Shi had other things on his mind. Shui was posting pics every day, showing off how much fun she was having, and Shu Yan was checking them all out. She promised she'd be back soon, but it had already been 3 whole days. The guy threw his phone aside, totally pissed. Just then, he got a text from Zheng Shui. She said she was finally back. He just replied like, "Wow, you're back early." But she got the feeling he was whining. She texted back, "Your sarcasm is so cute." Soon enough, it was the day of the interview with Guan. She arrived at the villa by boat, and one of Mr. Xiangchen's guys met her right away. Thanks to Uncle Guan's generosity, Shui got to have some fun, but now she needs to focus and nail this interview. She decided to check her hair and makeup, but then she suddenly saw a familiar face. Looks like it was Shi Yan coming out to meet her. Shui was definitely surprised by that. She ran up to him, all happy, saying it had been way too long, but Director Shi just straight up ignored her. She knew she was here for an interview with Uncle Guan, so she had no idea why Shi Yan was even there. She asked him right away if he was waiting for her. Guan Xiangcheng invited the young journalist into his tea room, and they sat down at the table. He offered her some tea, saying he doesn't share this stuff with just anyone. Shi Yan took a sip too, and told her the tea was brewed with melted snow water. The main character was left wondering what he meant by that. "So," Shi Yan smirked, "you don't like it, huh?" Right now, Director Shi was giving off this weird, brooding vibe. It was like he was jealous of the freaking snow. The main girl took a sip and said the snow tasted absolutely amazing. Director Shi got up from the table, saying he'd leave them so they could actually talk. While Shui was doing the interview, the guy just wanted to chill on a lounge chair. But his phone kept buzzing, wouldn't let him relax. He kept getting notifications about refunds hitting his card non-stop, so, annoyed, he told Shu to unlink his number from her card so he wouldn't see any more refund alerts. After the interview, the characters sat back down at the table. The main character was stoked they even let her stick around after the interview with Uncle Guan. Out of nowhere, the guy asks how old she is and she tells him, 25. Guan Xiangcheng, with a warm smile, says she'd be a great fit for Shi Yan. The dark-haired dude himself didn't react at all. With a little sadness in her voice, she says she thinks so too. After that whole horse thing, Uncle Guan probably got the wrong idea about them, and Shi Yan definitely didn't bother to correct him. Shui decided to seize the opportunity and mess with him a little. Guan Xiangcheng has met tons of female journalists, and a lot of them switched careers after years on the job. But the main character pointed out that their magazine has plenty of beautiful women working there. Good looks definitely have their perks, since who wouldn't want to sit down for an interview with a pretty girl? The main character agreed, because even director Shi liked pretty journalists, seeing as he'd already been checking out the intern. Guan Xiangcheng asked if that was true, and the two characters gave different answers. Shui looked away and reminded the guy that he even asked where that girl went. She lightly kicked Shi Yan's leg, but he immediately pinned her leg with his. Then director Shi admitted he only did it to tease her, but even then, the main character didn't believe him. As proof, she asked for shrimp. Shi Yan soft-ended and offered her a shrimp, but she replied that he hadn't even peeled it. Seeing the man's stressed face, Shui quietly laughed. Then she realized she'd gone too far and started peeling a shrimp herself, and then handed it to director Shai, and he immediately swallowed the seafood. Soon, the main character had to head back, so Shi Yan walked her to the boat. Shui thanked the guy for his help and promised to do her best to write an awesome article. Even though print media was starting to tank, the main character was still stoked to be a journalist. Shui hopped nimbly into the boat and offered to sing as a thank you. After clearing her throat, the young woman got ready. Shi Yan was captivated as Shui started to sing. With the sunset as a backdrop, she looked absolutely stunning, and her melodic voice just made the whole scene even richer. Director Shu immediately turned away. He did it on purpose, so Shui wouldn't see how red his face was getting. From his niece's messages, the guy learned that she hadn't returned anything, and most likely Shui had given back all the gifts. "Hey, Miss Zheng, boat captain says hustle up and grab a seat, quick." Shi Yan was thinking, if she wasn't in it for the money and fame, would she even be here right now? Catching the guy staring, the lead gave him a big smile and waved goodbye. After that interview with Mr. Guan, Shui started grinding on her article. And finally, she was done. The lead posted something just for Shi Yan, asking if anyone could get a bed delivered to the office. She was betting he was checking his friend's posts. But 30 minutes later, still nothing, so she chucked her phone down, totally ticked off. Her taxi was almost up, so she headed outside. A familiar blonde dude jogged up to her, asking if she was done for the day. It was that kid from the cafe. The dude said business was slow, so he stepped out for some air, but then he suddenly remembered something. He went back inside and handed the girl a bag. Shui wanted an egg tart at noon, but they were all sold out, so the guy asked the baker to make some more, just for her. The main character took the treat. The kid went on to say he'd set them aside specially for her. Right then and there, Shi Yan, all serious, asked the girl if she'd paid for that. The main character turned around surprised and saw a sly grin on director Shi's face. The man shoved a $100 bill at the cafe kid, then pushed him away. Grabbing Shui's hand, he suggested they go sit in the car. The main girl grinned, 'cause she was honestly starting to think he wasn't gonna show. Shi Yan tossed the dessert in the car and asked Shui if she was really brave enough to take food from a stranger. She said she'd seen the guy around a bunch and was already gonna sit down, but Shi Yan told her to get in the front. Xu Yuling was watching the whole thing go down. Now she finally understood how Zheng Shui managed to snag the cover spots in practically every issue. She'd been playing the game with connections the whole time. Xu Yuling was absolutely livid when she realized it. The main girl shivered and quietly wondered if someone was talking about her right then. It smelled amazing in the back, and Shi Yan asked if she was hungry. If that was the case, he was planning on treating her. The main character nodded happily. Soon they arrived at the restaurant, and the girl ordered a special noodle dish with fresh shrimp. She thanked the director for treating her to noodles, saying she was finally gonna get her fill. But Shi Yan himself refused to eat. Just then, a group of guys walked into the place. Among them, the main character spotted Yue Xingzhou. The girl jumped up from the table, told the director she wasn't feeling well, and headed to the restroom. Shi Yan didn't ask any questions. Meanwhile, one of the guys asked Xingzhou to spill the beans. He was dying to know why he suddenly broke up with Zheng Shui. Xingzhou said with a sigh that they just weren't compatible, but his buddies from school weren't buying it. They were even betting on when the wedding would be. Looking up, Xingzhou noticed some random dude staring intently at him. Meanwhile, his friends kept going on about how great he and Shui looked together, but all that was going through his head was how intimidating the guy across from him looked. But then Shi Yan immediately looked away. Xingzhou instantly felt relieved, figuring the guy was just checking out the menu behind him. From the conversation, his friends learned that Shui was the one who called it quits. Which wasn't a shock, since she's running with a totally different crowd now and doesn't have time for some bank teller. But hey, let the past stay in the past, right? Because Zheng Shui ain't exactly the type of woman you can settle down with. As soon as those dudes split, the main girl came back from the restroom. She felt bad her buddy had to wait so long. Even the noodles were stone cold by now. Shi Yan noticed Shui looking all bummed out. Crossing his arms, he told her to look up at him. Out of nowhere, he said she had these gorgeous big eyes. Too bad she's got a real knack for picking the wrong guys, and that totally killed Shui's vibe. She stood up, said she lost her appetite, and asked the director to take her home. The fancy car sped through the night city. Maybe it was just her imagination, but Shiyan seemed like he was in a seriously foul mood. She skipped dinner after working late, so she was pretty sure she was about to pass out from hunger. There was a knock at the door, meaning the delivery was finally here. A friendly guy handed Ms. Zheng an order from 10 Flavors restaurant, which she definitely didn't order. Inside was the deluxe version, with added crab roe. As far as Shui knew, 10 Flavors didn't even deliver, so she had no idea what Shi Yan shelled out for this. Turns out little Yan from the Shu family is actually pretty thoughtful. She thanked her boss in a text and dug into dinner. In the photo, the guy noticed that Shui had picked out all the green onions. She was surprised by his attention to detail and replied that she hated that ingredient. Shiyan called her picky, and she shot back that her parents never cared what she ate. She decided to ask the director if he treated all the girls he dated like that. The guy's mind immediately flashed back to the conversation the guys had with Shui's ex. He recorded a voice message, asking her if her ex-boyfriend really didn't give a damn. After that, Shiyan turned off his phone and took a huge gulp of liquor. The reply came instantly, with Shui asking why he'd even bother caring about something so trivial. Then she recorded a message saying that if he were her boyfriend, he definitely would care. The girl gave an awkward smile and the guy immediately replayed the message. It made him smile and his ears turned bright red. Not a lot happened last year, but the most important thing right now is the upcoming reports from Mingyu Holdings. It's a fintech subsidiary of Mingyu Bank. The whole industry's eyes are glued to their IPO. No journalist would pass up a story like that. Plus, Shi Yan's their rep, but Tang Yi told Shu Yuling to handle this one. Whatever she gets up to, that girl's still the backbone of the company. The main character's already got the front page article, she can't hog all the glory again. But out of nowhere, Shu Yuling said she doesn't know Mingyu that well, and Zheng Shui's a better fit for this. She's just better suited for the event. The main character was like, has her biggest rival finally lost it, passing up an opportunity like this? But whatever, Shui's in charge now. But then the girl got word from Shi Yan that he won't be at the Mingyu Holdings event the day after tomorrow, which bummed Shui out a little. 2 days went by, and the day of the event finally arrived. The woman called her secretary and asked her to handle the journalist from the Financial Weekly, the one she was supposed to meet. The girl on the other end of the line raised an eyebrow in confusion, but she was stunned when she realized they were talking about Zheng Shui. The main character was brought coffee and was apologetically told that Mr. Q had many meetings today, so she'd have to wait a bit. But Shui was happy because the coffee at this company was really good. However, several hours had already passed, and the girl had already downed her 5th cup. The sun was already starting to set, and Mr. Q still hadn't shown up. She texted Shiyan a picture of 5 empty coffee cups, saying she was about to throw up from all this coffee because of waiting for Mr. Q. All the girl's hopes were dashed when the employee told her that Mr. Q had some urgent business come up and he had to leave. Just then, a woman came out to greet them. She apologized to Zheng Shui and said Mr. Q would be with her shortly, so she should follow her. The woman awkwardly explained that the man had returned right away. The main character had a pleasant conversation with Mr. Q. The man apologized for what happened, saying the young woman had to wait so long because of the secretary's negligence. Shui replied that the meeting could have been rescheduled, but Mr. Q stated that he couldn't do that. He asked an employee to order a taxi for Ms. Zheng. Qin Leji burst into the office and asked Mr. Q if he wanted to see her. The main character froze when she saw her ex-boyfriend's mistress. Qin Leji also froze, staring at Shui. "This way, Miss Jung," the staffer said, gesturing for her to follow. The main character figured rich folks had a new hobby these days, slumming it with the commoners. But Xian's a real hard-ass with his niece. Director Shai was informed it was all the secretary's screw-up, and the punishment's already been decided. The interview's over, so they called Miss Jung a cab. Then they started pressuring Mr. Shai to set up another meeting, but he shot them down. Throwing on his jacket, he told Chen Sheng to bring the car around. But he ran into Shui right at the door. The main character, all innocent, told Mr. Shi she was starting to think he wasn't gonna show. The guy hung up the phone right away. He called it a coincidence, like someone just happened to stumble on this building and knock on this door. The main girl said she ran into Chen Sheng in the elevator and figured she should come by and thank him. She meant for the help with Mr. Q. Xian smirked and headed for the exit, and she followed, asking if he was already going home. The guy stopped and asked Shui what she felt like eating. "'Cause he was buying." Cut to them showing up at this place, and they were number 78 in line. It was already so late, the main girl started wondering if they'd even get a chance to order what they wanted. Ignoring the red light, she just bolted across the crosswalk, not seeing the car coming. At the last second, Xian managed to shove her out of the way, pulling her close. Then he turned me to face him and gave me the once-over. He let go real quick and started chewing me out, telling me to watch where I'm going. I promised her that it wouldn't happen again. After sitting down at the table, I started looking at the menu, trying to decide what to get. But it turned out he barely ate anything on the whole menu. Turns out, Xian grew up in Europe, so he wasn't used to Chinese food, especially spicy stuff. After a bit, the waiter came over, thanked us for waiting, and set down the dish. The director glanced at the peaceful smile on my face and got lost in thought for a second. When he pulled me out of the way of that car, my lipstick got smeared all over. I didn't even notice, but I accidentally got his white shirt all messed up with it. But now she was flashing a wide smile. Seeing that made a smile bloom on Xian's face too. He reached for the dish the journalist offered, but then his phone rang. His niece was on the other end, yelling about someone trying to shake her down. She just pulled over, wasn't doing anything, and this jerk was just lying there, not moving, and now he's threatening to call the cops. Shui decided to stay quiet and not get involved in their family drama. But she still suggested they head over there to avoid any trouble, and just reschedule dinner. Shui was used to waiting for people, and especially with Director Shai, she always had to. She knew perfectly well she was shamelessly taking advantage of the trust that had grown between them. But she told Mr. Shi she was willing to wait for him as long as it took. The main character just couldn't help but blurt out her dumb thoughts to him. But Xian doubted she could actually put all that food away. So he texted his secretary, told him to handle it like last time, and ended up staying with the girl. The main character was super surprised when the director said he wasn't leaving, 'cause he just couldn't stand the thought of leaving her alone. And then he added he couldn't bear to see her back in the hospital. The main character raised an eyebrow, confused, and asked who said she couldn't eat it all herself. Xian looked at the girl, intrigued, clearly wanting to say something. Maybe he wanted to call her a little angel or a girl of extraordinary beauty, but instead he called her an Oscar-worthy actress. The next day, Shui asked Xu why she was late for the 8th time this month. Okay, she's totally laying it on thick about that car crash last night, saying she didn't get it sorted till after 2 a.m. The lead girl immediately pipes up, saying she should have mentioned it yesterday, and she would have told her to take the day off. But what Shui really wants to know is, couldn't Xu's parents have helped her out? The girl explains they're overseas right now, and her uncle couldn't even be bothered to check if she was okay. The lead girl thinks that's messed up. Xu retorts, sounding annoyed, that she's starting to think he's got some kind of interest elsewhere. Shui exclaims that nothing in the world should be more important than your own niece. But then the lead girl gets a text and immediately ditches the intern, telling her to take it easy. Xian texted her that he's at the airport right now, but the lead girl doesn't get why he's telling her this. She asked where he was heading and he said, "The good old USA." The girl promised she'd miss him like crazy. Little stars started popping up on the screen as she typed that out. Shui told him to check it out, 'cause there were stars everywhere. That brought a smile to Xian's face. And before you knew it, he was on the plane and gone. A few days later, Xian went to a charity dinner, and tons of people were lining up to talk to him. All the hubbub just made him want some peace and quiet. He stepped out onto the terrace and looked up at the stars. Xian had never noticed how many freaking stars there actually were. But his imagination immediately conjured up a picture of Shui, excitedly yelling that the stars were everywhere. That brought a smile back to his face. And then the girl said she'd be all over him. Instead of wasting time chatting with these actors, the guy just wanted to go back and watch her performance. After all, the star on his screen is way more interesting to look at. So Xian told Chenshen they were heading back tomorrow. The main character's friend Roshan came to visit and would be staying for 3 days over the New Year holidays. Suddenly, Shui spotted a familiar guy right in front of her. Xian looked up and their eyes met. Ruoshan, with a sly grin, asked her friend if that wasn't the guy she was always chasing after. The main character ran up to the director and asked him what he was doing there. The guy handed her a package, saying he just happened to stumble across them. It was a pair of shoes, bought specifically for the actress who deserves an Oscar more than anyone. The main character remembered that she'd wrecked a pair of shoes at that concert. Xian came closer and quietly asked why she hadn't mentioned her friend was visiting. Shui froze and looked at the director, totally confused. When she didn't answer, the guy just said he was leaving. Shui's friend was stunned when she saw the insane amount of diamonds on the gifted shoes. The main character immediately blew him a kiss, positive that Xian had come back early because of her. The guy saw it in his rearview mirror. A happy smile spread across the main character's face. Xian started smiling too, not doubting for a second that it was worth it. Roshan wanted to spend New Year's Eve downtown, but the streets were packed. But hey, at least the girls could stay home and hang out. The main character was smiling all night, and her friend asked if it was all because of that hotshot director. Shui confessed that before leaving, Xian asked why she hadn't mentioned her friend was coming for New Year's. In other words, he definitely wanted to spend the holiday with her. But Roshan immediately told her friend to get it together, because you can't go soft at moments like these. She advised dumping him the second he starts getting too clingy and losing his mind over you. The main character remembered that she hadn't sent a single message to the director before he left for the States. My girl gave her props for that, saying it's about time she stopped making the first move. Shui decided to drop a few posts, just to mess with Xian a little. But 3 hours later, he hadn't even liked a single pic. Guess it doesn't faze him. Fireworks exploded in the sky. That meant the countdown had begun. Right when the clock struck midnight, it was New Year's. The main character's group chats blew up with a crazy amount of New Year's greetings. But the message from Xian made her the happiest. He wished her a happy New Year, and she wondered if it was just a mass text. But the director didn't reply, so it was Shui's turn. The girl wrote that it was a huge honor to be on his mailing list, saying it made Shui feel special. He replied instantly, asking if she was bored with her friend since she was writing him stuff like that. Joshin immediately realized Xian was implying she was stealing Shui away from him. Her friend declared they needed to end the conversation right there so she wouldn't look like a pushover. Like she could make up an excuse and just say she was tired and wanted to crash. Shui nodded and typed it, completely forgetting that the phrase could be taken the wrong way. Joshin asked her friend to make her a cup of hot chocolate, since she hadn't had one in forever. That's when Shui finally realized what she had just sent the director. She immediately lunged for her phone, hoping Xian hadn't read it yet. The main character quickly typed that she didn't mean anything by it, begging him not to get the wrong idea. Deleting it was too late. The guy had already seen everything, and now, surprisingly, he was replying super fast. Shui blushed when Xian told her to hurry up and explain everything. The main character repeated that she didn't mean anything by it. She just wanted to make sure she was understood correctly. But now she was definitely going to bed. Xian had just gotten out of the shower, but her messages made him want to jump right back in. This was a total misunderstanding, and Shui hoped Director Shi had already completely forgotten about it. She desperately wanted him to just drop it already. While Xian was in the shower, his ears turned red again. The next morning, the main character started sending out greetings to all her friends, carefully reading everything first. She was totally caught off guard when Mr. Guan actually replied to her. Out of the blue, the guy invites her to visit his ranch again, saying exercise is great for your health. Joshin was stunned when she saw that. Shui explained that the finance professor actually owns a ranch. Putting on her sweetest face, Joshin said she was dying to go horseback riding. So, 2 days later, the girls headed out to the ranch in the suburbs. Guan Chengcheng's son asked Xian what brought him back so soon, since he was supposed to be celebrating the holiday in the States. The guy just shrugged and said he felt like coming back, that's all. Guanzi went out of his way to get something for his buddy. He stocked up on jade, because he's a true believer in that stuff, so he ordered a bunch of carvings. Guanzi asked Xian to take a look, noting that his head seemed to be in the clouds today. Director Shi asked flatly if he really believed in that kind of stuff. One of the figurines had something inscribed on it. Things will go exactly as you wish. If only it were that easy, Xian wouldn't be sighing like he's carrying the weight of the world. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Why didn't Guanzi warn us we were getting a visit from two gorgeous women at the ranch?" And they really were stunning. Spotting a familiar figure, Shi Yan immediately slapped on his glasses. His hunch was right, Shui was definitely among those girls. Now that phrase on the jade figurine was making him crack a smile. He was about to get up, but Guanzi happily rushed over to the ladies to greet them and introduce himself. So Shi Yan plopped back down, looking pissed. Shui introduced herself and said she decided to swing by and say hi to Uncle Guan. She didn't expect anyone else to be here, though. Guanzi said it wasn't a problem at all since the ranch is big enough for everyone. Meanwhile, Shi Yan was doing a bang-up impression of the furniture. Judging by his look, he was cool as a cucumber, so Shui decided to ignore him. One of the guys told Guanzi he never changes, always ditching them for the ladies at the first chance he gets. But hey, he's definitely got good taste. 'Cause the girls he brings around just keep getting hotter every year. Shi Yan stood up and asked the guys if they wanted to know why Guanzi's still a bachelor. Looks like the director swiped that jade when nobody was looking. Then he went on about how women are just too much for him to handle. The young ladies headed to the stables to pick out their horses for a ride. Our girl found Brownie and decided she'd ride him again this time. Guanzi was totally convinced the girls were drooling over his looks and company. That is, until a hand landed on his shoulder. Shi Yan showed up and asked his buddy if he was getting bored already. Then the director's eyes locked onto the main character. He wanted to know what she was doing there. Shi Yan looked all wound up, not at all like he usually is when he's alone with Shui. The main character shot back that he didn't own the ranch, so she had every right to be there. Guanzi agreed, saying Madame Zheng could come to their ranch anytime she pleased. His buddy told Shi Yan to lay off and be nice to pretty girls, or he'd be alone forever. Shui glanced at the director's face, and it was like a thundercloud rolling in. She immediately looked away and ducked behind Guanzi. Shi Yan sighed heavily when his friend told him to quit scaring the pretty girl with his attitude. The director decided to remind her that he could have her barred from the place with a single word. Guanzi tried to smooth things over and told his friend to chill, but the guy snapped back that they weren't exactly tight. The main character totally misinterpreted that, thinking he meant her, and chimed in, "Yeah, we're definitely not close. I mean, let's be real, they barely know each other." Guanzi had no clue what these guys were beefing about. The tension between them was thicker than thieves. Even though the main girl had worn this gear before, for some reason she just couldn't buckle the damn belt this time. It was all Shi Yan's fault, 'cause he came at her out of nowhere, and now Shui couldn't think straight. But suddenly, someone appeared right behind her. It was Shi Yan. The main girl squeezed her eyes shut and blushed, 'cause the dude was giving off some serious chill vibes. Without a word, he took her belt to help her buckle it. With him so close, Shui's face got redder by the second, and her heart was pounding like crazy. She even stood on her tiptoes to try and get a little taller, and just like that, Shi Yan expertly took care of her belt. Once everything was cool, the main girl thanked him for the help and started pushing the guy away. Without even realizing it, her fingers brushed against his neck. The guy suddenly grabbed her hands, locking them together. Shi Yan, with a heavy sigh, asked if she didn't say a few days ago that she wanted to get intimate with him, and now she's acting like they barely know each other. He glanced at Shui, who was clearly embarrassed by what he said. Just then, a man walked into the locker room and asked Shi Yan if he was ready. Guanzi also asked if the director had seen Madame Zheng anywhere. The main girl immediately covered her mouth to avoid accidentally making any noise, which brought a smile to Shi Yan's face. He let go of Shia's hands and replied that he hadn't, asking what the rush was. At that moment, Roshan told Guanzi that she was ready and needed to choose a calm horse. Guanzi figured he wouldn't push Shi Yan about Madame Zheng, probably didn't even care. Finally, they were gone. She tried to get off Shi Yan's legs, but he stopped her, told her to say something. He was waiting for her to finally say anything to him, but she just pouted. Shi Yan could tell she was seriously ticked off at him now. Maybe he should lay off the teasing for a bit. Out of nowhere, she asked, all flustered, if he really wanted to, get intimate with her. Shi Yan wasn't expecting that question. His face went all surprised. Then she asked if he'd take responsibility if things went a little too far between them. Shi Yan spun Shui around to face him, quick. The second he grabbed her neck, she jumped. And then she gave Director Shai this totally innocent look. In that moment, Shi Yan couldn't see anything else but her gorgeous face. The main character's ears turned bright red, and her lips parted just a little. Shi Yan pulled Shui even closer, unable to think about anything but kissing her. Suddenly, she quietly mentioned that his watch was cold. That snapped Shi Yan right back to reality. He let go of her abruptly. Gently pinching her cheek, Shi Yan explained that her face was just flushed, that's all. Shui was convinced that the cold metal was the reason her face felt like it was on fire. Seriously, Xian was this close to losing it. Just touching her, and his so-called self-control goes right out the window. The main girl had no clue why she suddenly decided to resist his embrace and ask that question. It took her forever to change, because Shi Yan decided to mess with her. Even though the guy's personality was a total jerk move, his scent was intoxicating. Stepping out onto the ranch, she saw Shi Yan standing next to the horse she'd picked. Remembering stuff from the past, Shui decided there was nothing special about the guy's smell, and she needed to bail, like, yesterday. But her friend was totally hung up on some other dude. Shi Yan came up from behind and told the girl to get on the horse already. The guy asked if she could get on by herself, or if she needed a hand. The main character asked, all freaked out, if there were any other seriously awful options. But then she held out her arms and asked the director to give her the Princess Carrie. But Xian just blew her off, stepping aside. The main character cursed under her breath and started trying to climb onto the horse herself, while little Brownie wouldn't stand still. Finally, Xian gave her a boost up. The guy told her next time, just come to him if she ever wants to learn how to ride. Shay didn't know if she was just imagining things. And Xian also told her not to say stuff like that so recklessly. The main character was stunned when she realized Director Shi had actually smiled at her for the first time. That made her happy, and she struck up a simple conversation with him. That Lunar New Year Golden Week flew by in a flash. My coworker asked if my parents were giving me the same old marriage pressure. I jumped when my mom called. She wanted to know when I was coming home, but I guiltily told her I was swamped with work this year. Then she started going on about some director's son I should meet. I told her I already had a boyfriend, so I wasn't looking to meet anyone else. But she didn't believe me since I'd never brought him home. She started demanding I at least send her a picture. I figured I'd just grab one of Xian from the last press conference. Now that I'm getting a good look, being an older woman with a guy like that doesn't sound half bad. Shui sent a pic to her mom, wanting her to get a load of her future son-in-law. The main character was convinced this was gonna make her happy. But then, out of nowhere, her mom sent a photo of some dude and asked if she knew who he was. This singer looked familiar, and her mom joked that he was her future father-in-law. So, just to keep her mom off her back, the main character agreed to go on a blind date with a guy named Yu. Shui made a point of wearing something simple and keeping her makeup light. She apologized to Yu for being late, saying she got stuck in traffic. The main character was feeling awkward, so she decided to just politely mess around on her phone for a bit. Suddenly, she stumbled across a photo of Xian that she'd saved just yesterday. Even though both these guys wore glasses, they were as different as night and day. Yu asked Miss Jung if there were any foods she absolutely couldn't stand. The main character gave an awkward smile and told him to order whatever he liked. The guy immediately checked to see if her family was pressuring her to be on this date, and she nodded. Yu confessed that he was actually in the same boat. The main character was happy to hear that. Since both their families are already breathing down their necks, the leads decided to say they'd met and wanted to get to know each other better. Yu was planning to continue his studies in America in a year, so then they could say they decided to just stay friends. The main character agreed with that idea. As soon as it was all over, Shui thanked Mr. Yu for giving her a ride. Out of the blue, Yu asked her if she'd been single for a while now. Looks like she's got no shortage of admirers. That's why the guy figured she had someone special, but for whatever reason, they couldn't be together. Yu apologized if he'd overstepped, but those words really stuck with Shui. She stared at the car driving away for a while, thinking about what he said. And for some reason, Xian kept popping into her head. It was starting to get chilly out, so she figured she better get moving. But suddenly, on the other side of the crosswalk, she spotted a familiar guy in a dark coat. Xian was staring right at her with this intense, icy look. She started thinking about making a run for it, but a text message stopped her cold. Because Xian told me to stay put. The guy shoved his phone in his pocket, eyes glued to the girl. The main character knew she hadn't done anything wrong that she needed to run from. With Yu, she had no choice, but even that was just an act. As soon as Director Shui crossed the road, he stopped in front of Shui, and the girl felt that height difference again. She knew perfectly well she shouldn't feel guilty, since she and Xian weren't at that stage yet. Out of nowhere, the man took off his scarf and wrapped it around the main character's neck. Then, in a low voice, he asked her to stay. 2 hours earlier, Xian was at the old Shi family residence, reading an article about Zheng Shui. His father called out to him again, asking, annoyed, if his son was even listening. Shi Wenkan heard that Xian has been seeing some low-profile actress lately. The dark-haired guy said that wasn't true, that girl just loves to play pretend. Dad knew his son was smart and wouldn't date an actress, no matter what. Out of nowhere, Shiyu showed up. Shi Wenguan thought his granddaughter was supposed to be at the library with her tutor. Shi Yan froze when his niece said Zheng Shui went on a blind date. Shui's only a couple years older than Shiyu, and she's already thinking about settling down, which is actually pretty cool of her. But the girl said her friend fell head over heels for a guy like that, but he turned out to have some serious baggage. And now she's been fighting her divorce for almost a year, and her ex still has her wrapped around his finger. Suddenly, the uncle smacked his niece on the head and told her to stay out of things that are none of her business. After Xian asked that, the main girl wanted to know what he was getting at, saying she's a busy woman. The guy decided to press her, asking if she's so busy that she still finds time for blind dates. Shui tried to explain it was just her mom's boss's son, but her voice trailed off with every word. She didn't want to tell Xian she was on a blind date, especially since she didn't even want to be there. If she said too much, things would get weird for both of them. So, out of the blue, she asked if he didn't trust her. The main girl figured Xian was probably upset right now. But the truth was, the guy realized he was a goner, because all Shui had to do was look at him and he'd give up everything. But the worst thing that could happen is if someone tried to take advantage of them for personal gain. Although, when it comes to that, it's still up in the air who'd be using who. A smile crept across Xian's face at that thought. But to the main girl, it looked kinda creepy and made her tense up. Shigen took a step forward. Since the lady's got so much free time, maybe she could hang with him. The main girl squeezed her eyes shut, realizing she screwed up again, and told the guy that was out of line. But he just brushed a leaf off his head and asked if she'd finished her IPO research on Mingyu Holdings. If not, she could come in tomorrow and work some overtime. The main girl felt like a total chump. The next day, Xian heard a knock at his office door and told them to come in. Shui peeked in and awkwardly greeted Director Shai. Then she strolled right into the office, saying she was there to put in some extra hours with him. Xian once heard a joke at a party. Business is like a casino, and you only bet when you're sure to win. Shui definitely had some ulterior motives, ones he couldn't quite put his finger on. But he'd already gone all in, betting everything he had, including himself. Seeing the massive stack of documents, the main character wondered if she really had to wade through all of that. So Xian wasn't kidding when he said she'd be working overtime. That's why the main character decided to grab the bull by the horns, otherwise she'd be stuck there all weekend. But after just a few hours, Shui was totally wiped, cause she'd already read a ton of papers. Unlike her, Xian had been sitting still all day, just occasionally tapping on the keyboard, like he wasn't even working. Out of the blue, he asked the girl if she was hungry. Shui immediately shouted, "No way!" Director Shi decided to ask why she was always staring at him then. Crossing her arms, Shui asked what it mattered if she looked at him, saying he couldn't just go around being that handsome and captivating. The main character jumped when the guy suddenly sat right next to her. He immediately took off his glasses. Leaning back, Xian told her to go ahead and feast her eyes on his gorgeous face. The main character's face flushed red, and she awkwardly replied that she'd already seen enough. Xian pulled her closer and asked if she was already backing down with lame excuses. Well, if that's how it is, now it's his turn to look. The dark-haired guy asked if she was afraid he was going to, get a little too close for comfort. That's when the main character just stood up and told the guy he was being a real jerk, and she had no idea how they even got on this topic. But Xian suddenly grabbed her arm, and then he pulled her onto his lap. The main character was internally freaking out, wondering if they were seriously about to go all the way right here. Shui decided to remind him that they were still in the office, and doing stuff like this wasn't exactly appropriate. The guy lifted her up a bit and asked her why it wasn't appropriate, and then he hit her with another question, asking who gave Zheng the reporter permission to be so darn cute and tempting. He totally flipped the script and used her own words against her. The main character was starting to lose track of what she was doing. Xian, on the other hand, realized he'd never seen Shui look so adorably flustered. The girl put her fingers to his lips and said softly that if they kept going like this, she'd need to hit the restroom, like ASAP. Xian smirked and asked if that was her thing. Then he abruptly stood up and pointed to the table where they'd be eating. Seeing Shui's confused expression, the guy asked if their company had some kind of daytime eating ban. Soon, a staff member placed several dishes on the table. The girl needed to collect herself and recharge the energy she'd spent so she could deal with Xian later. The man watched, mesmerized as she devoured the pastries. Then he got up and announced he had a meeting to get to, so she could hang out here for a bit. To kill the boredom, the girl dove into her phone. Suddenly, though, Shui felt super sleepy from all the food she just ate. The meeting finally wrapped up near evening, and the staff promised Director Shai they'd get everything sorted out perfectly. They froze when the boss swung open his office door, 'cause they saw this knockout of a girl inside. The main girl was just peacefully sleeping, totally clueless. Shi Yan immediately blocked the doorway so nobody else could get a peek at Shui. Then he went inside and knelt down next to the young woman. If Shui keeps sleeping like that, her neck's gonna stiffen up for sure and she'll be hurting later. So the guy shifted her into a comfier position while she mumbled something about him being a jerk in her sleep. But because of that, a little something extra got revealed. Shi Yan clenched his jaw and wondered to himself who the real lowlife here actually was. Suddenly the girl rolled over and her lips brushed against the guy's chin, making him freeze for a second. Just to avoid any temptation, Shi Yan covered the main girl with his jacket. Now the guy was sure he walked right into this trap. Once it got completely dark outside, the main girl woke up. She jumped up, startled, and started looking around, trying to figure out where she was. Shi Yan flicked on the lights, and then gave the girl a long, hard look. Shui asked the guy, all confused, what he was doing there. Putting on his glasses, Shi Yan asked her to remind him who this office belonged to. Then he decided to mention that there's a microchip summit in Fucheng from Friday to Sunday. So Shi Yan asked the girl if she was going. The main character knew this was where the big players hung out, a prime chance to network. The problem was, this time it was strictly TV reporters only, so Shui couldn't get in. Little did she know Director Shai was planning to give her a shot. That's why she was totally shocked when he said he'd bring her along. But the deal was, the main character had to stick by his side the whole time. Shi Yan was covering all the lodging and food so she didn't have to sweat it. Truth is, the guy was testing how good her acting skills really were. Before long, they arrived in Fucheng and checked into the Oxley Hotel. The main character was starving since she barely ate anything the whole trip. But Shi Yan wasn't answering her texts at all, even though he's the one who invited her here. Right then and there, the guy was reading her texts. The main girl declared she couldn't wait any longer, so she was going on a food hunt in a completely unfamiliar city. Shi Yan finally replied, saying he was busy, but he immediately got up from the table and announced to everyone at the event that he had to leave. Soon, Shui found a street food stall where she continued to rant about Shi Yan's neglect. Finally, the guy remembered her and deigned to call. Shi Yan immediately asked what she was doing, and the main girl thoughtfully replied that she was just enjoying life. And then she just hung up. Director Shi ordered a food court to be set up near the hotel and told them to get there ASAP. The owner said they were closing and provided containers so customers could pack up the leftovers. One of the guys called out to the hottie and offered her a drink with them. The main girl decided to play dumb and pretend she didn't hear anything. Then the thug walked closer and suggested swapping numbers, but right then, Shui dialed Shi Yan and told him where she was. The guy snatched her phone and told her to shut her trap. For now, the main girl decided to play along with these jerks, just to be safe. Shui scanned the QR code, and the thug touched her hair, saying it was beautiful. The main girl shoved his hand away. Stuff like this probably happens all the time, so the owner doesn't want to get involved. Suddenly, the thug pulled the hottie close and offered her a drink again. Shui swung her purse and clocked him right in the face. The guy immediately called her every nasty name in the book. And then he wound up his fist, ready to punch her lights out. Just then, some dudes in black suits rushed over and told him to stop right there. Then Chen Sheng showed up, saying they had everything on camera and the cops were on their way. The main girl felt a wave of relief when she saw Shi Yan's car. The guy hopped out of the car and called out to Shui. The main girl bolted straight into his arms. Shi Yan held Shui tight, but inside he was burning with rage, wanting to make those lowlifes pay. The car sped through the night. The main girl felt a little awkward being held like that, but she knew Shi Yan wasn't about to let her go. The guy sighed, holding onto the girl's skirt. Shi Yan asked, annoyed, didn't he tell her to dress warmer since it's freezing out? The girl buried her face deeper into his shoulder, only now really understanding what could have happened. She admitted guiltily that she just wanted to dress up and look pretty for him. It would have been great if he'd replied to her texts sooner. Shi Yan couldn't argue with that. The main girl quietly said she never thought she'd attract the wrong kind of attention. Shui really liked Shi Yan's scent. It was helping her calm down. Gaining some courage, she decided to ask the guy if he even liked her. Shi Yan looked her in the eyes and suggested she get closer so she could find out for herself. And then he pulled her chin, drawing her closer. The main girl didn't even try to resist. She slowly closed her eyes, catching a whiff of booze on his breath. He'd definitely been drinking at that meeting. Shiyan gently touched her lips. Just then, the driver raised the partition, not wanting to intrude on Director Shai and his girl. The main girl immediately pulled away, and Shiyan shot an annoyed look at his driver. Soon, the car arrived at the hotel. It had been a rough day for her, but now Shiyan was here, and she couldn't have been happier. Right by the elevator, his secretary called, letting him know all the thugs were caught and had already confessed everything. But Director Shi ordered him to double-check every single one of them and make damn sure they weren't getting out anytime soon. The elevator arrived, but the guy noticed Shui was totally lost in thought. She decided to tell him that drunk kiss was way too soft, like she barely even felt it. Shui decided to tease Shiyan a little and suggested they try again. After all, practice tests are all about getting a second shot, right? The main girl stepped into the elevator and announced she wanted to take a practice exam. Either way, he was the one who surprised her with that kiss, so Shui figured she should at least try to take the lead this time. As soon as the elevator doors closed, Shiyan pinned her against the wall and went right for her lips. And then he immediately deepened the kiss. She wasn't expecting them to start the practice exam right then and there. When she started to run out of air, she pulled away and told Shiyan she wanted to officially sign up for the exam later that day. He gently moved her hand to his shoulder and kissed her cute little nose. Then he went right back to kissing her lips. Just then, the elevator doors opened and some blonde dude popped up, humming a happy tune to himself. Shiyan shot him a death glare, never breaking the kiss with Shui. The guy instantly apologized and bolted. Shiyan looked into her eyes and asked in a low voice if she felt anything just now. The main character shyly looked down and said she tasted the liquor. Then she hurried off, saying it was time for bed. But the truth was, the young woman couldn't hide the happy smile that was plastered all over her face because of what happened. And Shiyan felt the same way. The next day, our girl was ready and waiting by Mr. Shu's car. He was already there. She was all business again today. Shui decided to take charge of this whole relationship thing. She couldn't let one kiss throw her off her game. Seeing a voice message from Kong Nan, she turned the volume down, not wanting to bother Shiyan. She totally didn't expect her phone to suddenly connect to the car's Bluetooth. Everyone in the car heard her co-worker ask Shui why she went to another city if she was just meeting her dad. She'd completely forgotten that she'd connected her phone to the car's Bluetooth last night because the driver's music sucked. Shiyan decided to ask if she was trying to hide the fact that she came to the conference with him. Pouting, our girl said that wasn't it at all. Shiyan was about to say that she seemed to like calling him Daddy, but Shui cut him off with a loud squeal, because she didn't want him to say it out loud. Truth is, there are some perks to hitting these events with Shiyan. Like now the main girl can snag the best seat in the house. Only a few hours later, Shui was struggling to hide the pain she'd been holding back, cause it was getting intense. Yeah, it was that time of the month. Guess she got too worked up yesterday, so her hormones went haywire and things kicked off early. Shiyan noticed his date had been on edge for a while, so he asked what was bugging her. Once this thing wraps up, Shui just wants to crash back at the hotel. The guy put his hand on her forehead, but she didn't feel feverish. Tilting his head, he asked her, all worried, what was going on. So the event's host invited Director Shi and his date to join them for dinner. But Shiyan said she wasn't feeling well and had already gone back to the hotel. Then his secretary came up and told him the front desk just called, saying Ms. Zheng was already resting. They also left some pain relievers outside her door. The main character just couldn't fall asleep. She reached for her phone, but it wasn't there. Suddenly, someone put it right in her hand and she thanked them for helping her out. It was only then that she realized it was Shiyan. He asked, not too happy, if she was just gonna suffer by herself if he hadn't shown up. He told her to sit up and take her medicine. The instructions said one pill should do the trick, so the guy dumped it into his hand. Out of nowhere, the girl just pops it in her mouth. Shiyan's brain immediately flashed back to their kiss and how soft her lips were. Totally clueless, Shui asked the guy for some water. Shiyan handed her a glass, telling himself he wouldn't take advantage of the situation right now, 'cause he's got standards. The main girl laid back down and said that if he kept cheering her up, she'd get better faster. Like, the dark-haired dude could give her a compliment or something. Something along the lines of, he's not in paradise yet, but somehow he still managed to meet a beautiful, sweet angel. Shiyan practically jumped back from the bed, clearly not wanting to lay down those kinds of lines. Then he plopped down on the couch and told her to get some rest, since he'd be right there. And then, all flustered, he called the main girl Miss Fairy. Finally, the young woman managed to fall into a deep sleep. Mom texted her daughter, telling her to watch a movie with Yue and not turn him down this time. Of course, Director Shi saw that. The main girl woke up at 10 p.m. and was feeling a whole lot better now. But she was bored, so she asked Shiyan for something to do, but he wouldn't go for it. Then the main girl decided she'd come up with something herself. Just then, someone knocked on her door. Happily opening the door, she saw Shiyan in his pajamas with half-wet hair standing on her doorstep. Slowly closing the door, Shui said she wasn't running a late-night hotel here. But the guy just smirked, opened the door, and told her to come on up so they could watch the movie together. This was Shui's first time watching a cute rom-com with Shiyan, so she wanted to soak it all in, but the dude just told her to pay attention to the movie. Shui immediately switched gears and stammered that the dialogue between the leads was super engaging. Then Shiyan drops that the scene is all in the main girl's head because the main guy's actually dead. She didn't want to watch a movie with a sad ending, so she started looking up reviews online. Shiyan chuckled quietly, and she realized he was totally messing with her. Maybe it's just her imagination, but Shiyan's been laughing a lot more lately. Shui wanted to be closer to him, so she snuggled up, finally feeling at peace. Shiyan remembered not understanding what the main character was doing when he first saw it. Was going through all that crap and self-doubt even worth it for love at first sight? The dark-haired dude figured that perfect romance was just some fantasy, never thought he'd actually experience it himself. But as soon as Shui made the first move, Shiyan couldn't help but reciprocate. It all goes back to when their eyes locked that first time. Walking down the hall, the guy heard a beautiful voice calling out, saying she was over there and waving. Her face was lit up with this killer smile you just couldn't look away. Shiyan felt something right then and there. But then she just walked right past him, heading straight for some other guy. Guess Shiyan can fall for his own fantasies too, and get stuck in a world that never made any sense to him before. 'Cause it's full of surprises and a real pain in the ass a lot of the time. Shiyan was dying to kiss her, but seeing the scratch on her lip, he scrapped the idea. Now he understood why Shui was wearing a darker shade of lipstick today. Shiyan realized he needed to get a better handle on himself next time. The main character fell asleep, and the man laid her down next to him. The schedule for the next few days was packed, and against that backdrop, the microchip summit wrapped up. Since Shui had published 2 major articles this quarter, her bonus was pretty sweet. With Lunar New Year coming up, she decided to get her parents some gifts. For her mom, she picked out a wool scarf and a pair of gold earrings, and she had her eye on a watch for her dad. The main character's gaze landed on another watch, but this time a women's one, and the saleswoman exclaimed that she had excellent taste. So Shui decided to try it on for herself. Just then, a girl walked into the store, telling her friend she'd snagged a watch for Xingzhou, 'cause he's all about that brand. Shui recognized the voice. It was Qin Leji. She didn't even flinch, just asked the sales lady to wrap everything up. Spotting Shui, Qin Leji told her friend they should find a sugar daddy so he could buy them stuff like this too. Our girl wasn't gonna take that lying down, so she shot back that her man loves her so much, he makes her go shopping. The only way to shut her up is to hit her where it hurts. Shui vowed to herself she'd be back to this mall just to put that little brat in her place again. Except Shui totally spaced and left her umbrella, and now it's pouring outside. Shiyan called, asking if she was done shopping so he could pick her up. She told him she was by the side entrance, but she could move somewhere else. She figured Shiyan probably dropped his niece off at the mall, and now he's picking her up. The dude got out of the car and looked at the main character. Maybe it's 'cause he's not wearing his glasses, but Shiyan's gaze seems way softer today than it usually is. So much so that Shui felt a little guilty. After that argument at the mall, she suddenly realized their whole story started with a lie, and this whole thing could fall apart any second now. Shui snuggled closer to the guy and told him she's going home to her parents for a few days for New Year's. Right now, the main character's gone way too far from the original plan, and there's no turning back. Shiyan nodded and said he'd take her home. If he'd started acting like this before, she'd have thought it was just her scheming finally paying off, but that it could end any second. But now, Shui just doesn't want him to hate her or push her away, even if she is the most awful, clueless liar. Before long, she arrived at her family's house. Her friend called, reminding her that her wedding was in a few days. But last minute, Xingzhou and his current girlfriend decided they're coming too. She calmly replied that it doesn't bother her anymore. Hanging up, she told her mom she was heading upstairs. The woman asked her husband if he didn't think their daughter was in too good of a mood lately. Now, when she heard about Yue Xingzhou, she didn't feel anything. Before she knew it, he'd just become an unfortunate fact of her life. At this point, the girl didn't even want revenge anymore. It all just seemed pointless. Right now, Shui was just looking forward to any good time she could spend with Shiyan. She had to admit she was head over heels for him. This time, she really lucked out. On the 4th day of the new year, the main character arrived at her friend's wedding with a gift envelope. Watching the ceremony, Shui couldn't help but picture herself with Shiyan as the bride and groom, but she immediately brushed those silly thoughts aside. The ceremony was almost over, so she decided to go get some fresh air. Just then, the bride tossed the bouquet, but it was a little too powerful of a throw. Without even trying, Shui ended up catching it. The host jumped right in and asked the beautiful girl if she had a boyfriend. The main character, beaming, said that there was someone she really liked. Shui decided to snap a few pics with the wedding bouquet to send to her lucky guy. Right then and there, Shiyan was in his car. The main character sent him the photo and captioned it, "Your floral fairy." A smile cracked across the guy's face, and he told the driver they were heading to eternal clouds for a wedding. He also told him to step on it, because he was itching to see Shui. The host chimed in, saying this bouquet was clearly destiny at work, so things were definitely going to work out for the sweet lady. Her college buddies grinned and said their girl Zheng Shui was getting more gorgeous every day. And then everyone started guessing what kind of job her boyfriend had. Out of nowhere, Chin Leji pipes up that she knows him, cause he's like super educated and practically perfect in every way. This dude's got a master's from some fancy overseas university and is basically flawless. Except for the minor detail that he's a bit older and already has a family. Xingzhou cuts his girl off right there, yelling, "What kind of nonsense are you spouting? I know way more than that." The main girl proudly declares that they definitely know best how to meddle in other people's business and bend the truth. Which means they're a match made in heaven. Just then, Shui calls Shiyan to ask if she's still having a blast. Finally ready to wake up from this nightmare, the girl admits she's run into a couple of real pieces of work. She's totally thrown when the guy suddenly tells her not to stay there any longer, cause he's standing right behind her. Shiyan adds that he shouldn't be causing a scene at her friend's wedding, so he asked Shui to come to him herself. The main girl gave a warm smile when she saw her sweetheart. She immediately apologized to her friend and promised to make it up to her another day. All the guests started whispering when they saw the Rolls Royce, and Xingzhou froze. The main girl ran up to Shiyan and gave him a big hug. The guy said warmly that even at a wedding, people can't help but give her a hard time. But Shui knew it was worth it to come here. Suddenly, Shiyan coldly asked her to tell him who was messing with her. But the main girl knew she couldn't rat out his niece and her damn ex. She was stunned to see how many people were watching them right now. Figures, the cheating couple had to show up here too. Chin Leji called out to her uncle, totally confused. Shiyan must not have heard her, so the main girl pointed out his niece just said hi. The guy gave Shui a blank stare. The main girl was clueless why he was making such a weird face. Shiyan's driver hopped out of the car and asked Chin Leji what she was doing there. The girl replied that she'd been invited to the wedding. The main girl's jaw dropped when the driver introduced his niece to Mr. Shai. Okay, it all makes sense now. The mistress's uncle is actually the Rolls-Royce driver. Yun Xingzhou looked at Shui and called her auntie, completely lost. The main character immediately shot back, saying you can't just talk to someone like that out of the blue. The girl was totally confused, wondering if she'd gotten something wrong. So, everything she'd been doing for the past few months was a complete waste? Shiyan offered the main character a ride, saying he was gonna take her home. Even though, right now, he felt like he could just explode at anyone who even looked at his girl the wrong way. Suddenly, Xingzhou blurted out a loud apology. Shiyan smirked and asked if that was all he had to say. Because right now the apology needed to go to Shui, not him. Xingzhou lowered his head guiltily and apologized to his ex, saying he shouldn't have let Leji say those things. The other woman also apologized, admitting she'd misread the situation. Shiyan still felt like they got off way too easy, but then he felt a gentle touch on his pinky finger. The main girl said that was enough and she was already tired and wanted to go home. But as soon as they were in the car, Shiyan asked whose aunt she was trying to be. He didn't get how the old Shui could mistake her for his aunt. Suddenly, Shiyu called the main girl and said she really wanted to hit up the hot springs in her area together. Shui immediately told the guy she promised to meet a friend today and couldn't just ditch her. Frowning, the guy asked if she was avoiding him, and the main girl nervously said no. Jumping out of the car, Shui said as a goodbye that the nightlife in Qinyang is awesome, so he should check it out. Last night she was all sweet-talking him, and this morning she practically jumped into his arms, and now she's dodging me like a scared little bird. The guy couldn't figure out if her ex still had that much of a hold on her. Right now, the main girl's head was a total mess. She didn't know how to come clean with Shiyan, and couldn't even imagine what excuse she could give, so the easiest thing was just to avoid him. But deep down, the main girl knew she was grateful to him. Grateful that because of this whole snafu, he actually noticed her. Xian smiled warmly, his gaze softening as the main girl turned and looked at him. Shui was even more thankful that this whole misunderstanding dragged on so long, 'cause it helped them get closer. Maybe this whole situation was a mistake, but Xian definitely wasn't. Shui realized she shouldn't avoid him, so she came back and suggested waiting in Chinan, saying they sell amazing fish there. Once she's done catching up with her friend, they can grab dinner together. Now the main character knew for sure from the very beginning, and still, she'd picked the right guy. It seemed super sus to Shiyu that her uncle suddenly went to Chinan and didn't even say hi. But then again, the gorgeous Zheng Shui was in that city. So Shiyu secretly followed her uncle to figure it out for sure, because she was convinced something was going on between them. But the girl didn't get why Shui agreed to meet up so easily. Looks like Holmes is back on the case, so Shu asked her friend how her Operation Anti-Plan was going. The main character awkwardly replied that it was all over now. Out of the blue, Shu offered to set her friend up with her uncle, saying he's incredibly hot and loaded. Shui was all like, I'm done with stories about uncles. This hot springs view is seriously epic. So the girls figured, time for some selfies to remember this. Shiyu immediately texted her uncle, inviting him to come chill with her and Shui, who's kinda bummed out right now. But all she got back was crickets. So she decided to play her trump card and sent the photo they just took. Still nothing back, and Shiyu was starting to think her gut feeling had totally ditched her. Night's here, which means Shiyan should be showing up any minute. Shui froze when Shiyu gasped, totally shocked to see her uncle. Without even thinking, the main girl looked up. Shiyan was standing on the second floor. He stared right at her, but his eyes weren't exactly filled with warmth. But right now, what the main character was most worried about was the fact that Shiyu had just called him her uncle. The man immediately started coming down the stairs towards her. The main character covered herself, realizing how screwed she was in this situation. Shiyan stepped right up to her and asked what kind of rough patch she'd been going through. Shu explained, flustered, that she'd just been talking to Shui, who said he was having a hard time. But then she decided to leave the lovebirds alone, saying her makeup artist was already waiting for her. The main character timidly said that she was still wet, so she asked him not to stand so close. Without a word, he started taking off his jacket. Then he rolled up his sleeves, showing off the bulging veins in his arms. He undid the top button of his shirt and loosened his tie. And then he pinned the main character to the desk and, in a low voice, asked about the heartache and the rough patch she'd been going through. Shui replied that it was just a little misunderstanding because she always thought he was into Shiyu. But that's all in the past now. Xian wondered if she had been jealous of him all this time. Pulling her even closer, the man said that her honesty made him think she might actually have feelings for him. Shui replied shyly that she was just being careful about these kinds of things, but the man kept pushing, asking his girl to just be straight with him. He wanted to know just how much she really liked him. Shiyan kept whispering in her ear, making the main girl blush even harder, her cheeks turning bright red. Then, he straight up asked her to compare him to her ex. Shiyan wanted to know who Shui was more into. The main girl was totally confused why he was asking these questions, until he took off his glasses. Was he seriously that desperate to get an answer? He moved in close to Shui's lips, and she whispered that she liked him more. But Shiyan wanted her to love him, and only him forever and always. He kept saying it over and over like he knew all along about her hidden agenda, which made Shui feel super guilty. Then he went in for a deep kiss. Pulling back a little, he asked again why she wasn't answering the question. Shiyan was about to kiss Shui again, but suddenly her phone started ringing. Talk about killing the mood. Shui answered the call, and it was her mom, who was already on her case, asking when she was finally coming home. The main character promised she'd be back soon. Surprisingly, Shiyan told her to get dressed, because he didn't want her parents to get the wrong idea about him. But then, out of the blue, he suggested they grab some fish tomorrow. Seeing the confusion on the main character's face, the man explained that he came to Ching'an specifically for her. Shui happily suggested they not only eat fish, but also see fish by going to the aquarium. Shiyan sighed heavily and agreed. The main character decided to start fresh, and the aquarium would be the cornerstone of their new beginning. After dropping Zheng Shui off, the guy headed to the hotel. He was so caught up in the moment, he totally missed some crucial signs, especially considering all the time they'd been spending together. And the fact she didn't pull away when he went to kiss her made Shiyan think that he already saw Shui as his own back then. But today, the dude realized she might see things differently, 'cause he saw hesitation and avoidance in her eyes. Shiyan's never been great at reading people, but now he's gotta learn. The guy decided he'd lay it all on the line tomorrow and do it in a way Shui deserves. His girl's hometown was beautiful. If only she were here right now, everything would be perfect. That's why Shiyan felt so incomplete. The guy decided to take a walk through the city at night, but right by the car, the driver asked if he could have just a couple of minutes. He wanted to apologize for his niece. That girl definitely acted rashly, but her uncle explained everything to her, and now she's broken up with that guy. Shiyan asked, annoyed, if Miss Jung was supposed to go crawling back to her ex now. The driver stammered, saying that wasn't what he meant at all, because her ex-boyfriend was just the worst. As a man, he just didn't want to work hard on his own. He just wanted to get ahead the easy way. Basically, Xingzhou thought that you were Leslie's uncle, so he was using her, just like he used Miss Jung Shui. Shiyan told his driver he was going for a walk, so he was free to go. Now the guy understood that this whole thing was some kind of setup from the start. It's hard for him to judge Shui right now because of her ex's reputation. Shiyan saw right through her cheesy acting. But these expressions were too real to fake, so the guy's mind was going haywire. Out of the blue, his niece called, asking to borrow Shui again for like 2 hours. But hearing only silence, Xiu asked, all worried, if everything was okay. Shiyan decided to find out what was really bugging Shui. After all, his niece had mentioned before that her mentor already had someone in her heart. So now Shiyan wanted the truth. Was there someone else in Shui's life? His niece replied that Shui used to chase after this guy, but it wasn't real love. So that's all ancient history. Now Shiyan knew for sure. Shui came to him because of her ex, but he couldn't unsee all those moments they shared, even if they came from messed up reasons. Thing is, Shiyan was just a tool to her. Everything she told him was just a way to stir things up, make someone jealous. Bottom line, what Shui brought to the table was a total fantasy. Only problem is, Shiyan didn't have a clue what to do now. The main girl couldn't hide her smile looking at the shoes she got, planning to wear them to the meetup tomorrow. She was really hoping it would finally snow soon. Shiyan was up all night, couldn't sleep a wink. Even knowing the whole truth, he still showed up to that meeting in the end. Shiyan kept wondering just how low Shui was willing to go with this whole charade. Every move she made, every smile she flashed, was just a fake-out, never meant for him. But her two-bit act kept him making rash decisions. He almost lost everything he had. Time to cut his losses, though. This pointless waiting game felt like a punishment for her, but maybe for Shiyan too. When Shui called, he picked up right away. She asked if he was even gonna show. So Shiyan just came right out with it, asking if she'd been playing him the whole time. He closed his eyes, praying to anyone who'd listen that Zheng Shui would give him the answer he needed. He needed her to deny it. The girl just meekly offered her apologies. A smile crept onto the guy's face as he hung up the call. Then he left, telling his people he was heading back home. The game's only just begun, but our main girl already knows what she's gotta do. But now that Shiyan knows the truth, he ain't coming. Shui figured that as long as she didn't say anything, it wouldn't be a lie, and he wouldn't get hurt. But sooner or later, this day was gonna come anyway. A person whose lies are exposed doesn't deserve forgiveness. Some aquarium employees walking by told her that all the spots were booked today because of some big shot. But he's gone now, so I guess it's all over, though now they gotta clean up all these flowers. Figuring it all out, Shui asked if she could take a look. The whole aquarium inside was filled with roses. Only then did she realize she was this close to the guy she loved. If everything had gone right, the young couple would have already jetted off on vacation today. She would have woken up in a gorgeous mansion overlooking the northern lights, which she'd always dreamed of seeing. And the man she loved would be right there next to her. He'd have set it all up just for her, patiently waiting for her to wake up. And then Shui would tell him she loves absolutely everything he does for her. And their lips would instantly lock in a passionate kiss. But he would have taken things further, showering her with affection all over. Every move he made would send the main character into pure bliss. He'd pull back a little and ask if she'd always been this sensitive. And then they'd be lost in another kiss. After it all went down, Shiyan would finally feel complete, like she was the one he'd always needed. Even with tears in her eyes, Shui would reach out begging for more. And then they'd go at it again, giving each other warmth and love all through the night. And for the rest of the vacation, they wouldn't leave that amazing mansion once. Except, the next few days, the main character woke up back in her own house. Her parents were super worried because she wouldn't eat and was always holed up in the attic. Mom decided to ask her daughter what was going on with her. She figured Shui was bummed about work stuff or maybe something else happened. And that's when our girl confessed she'd really messed up. Mom gave her a big hug and said with a warm smile that everyone screws up when they're young, the important thing is not to do it again. But the girl felt like there was no future left. But her mom promised her there definitely would be. At the races, Xian checked his phone again. Shui hadn't contacted him at all since that day. Guanzi exclaimed in frustration why the heavens were so cruel, just like that woman. Xian agreed, because that woman wasn't just cruel, she was a total ice queen. His niece called him again. Xiu said her stomach issues flared up again, so she asked him to tell the editor-in-chief to give her some time off. But out of nowhere, the guy just let her quit. The main character didn't hear from Xian again until after New Year's break. Back in the city, she threw herself into work because it kept her from overthinking everything. She tackled every task step by step, including the one Shui needed to sort out. She needs to visit Mingyu today. Suddenly, Xiu came up to the main character and told her she just quit her job. Xiu confessed that she's actually been having some health problems lately, so she decided to take it easy at home and get better. Stopping the girl, Shui asked if her uncle had given his okay for this. Xiu explained that he was the one who told her to quit. And that's when our main character really felt the absence of Xian, something she hadn't realized until now. Unlike all her previous visits to Mingyu, this time Shui came with her own agenda. Even if she'd screwed up big time, she still wanted to hold him like before, and in his arms, tell him everything and show him how she really felt. Even if that urge was still selfish, she just had to see him. Director Shai was informed that Miss Zheng Shui was on her way, but the man didn't react at all to the news. Our girl didn't want them to have no future, so she was going to fix things starting now.